Chapter 506. Lu Jie did not stop attacking. Instead, he continued to command the 200 plasma caterpillars that had just emerged from the quicksand to throw themselves into the violent lightning and self-destruct. After that, Lu Jie no longer cared about the lives of the 46 platinum blade worms. Instead, he directed the thousands of flesh-mincing blade worms that had emerged from the quicksand to charge at the 25 diamond blade worms. Lu Jie knew that no matter how strong the 47 platinum blade worms' regenerative abilities were, they would not be able to survive the attack just now. At that moment, Lin Yuan had already controlled the source sand to cover each flesh-mincing blade insect with a thin layer of sand. On this thin layer of sand, Lin Yuan allowed the source sand to precipitate a high concentration of ferromanganese. The ferromanganese would certainly slow down the flesh-mincing blade worm speed, but it would not affect Lu Jie's Battle Plan 4. Lu Jie's Battle Plan 4 did not care about the individual uses of the insect units. Instead, he treated each insect unit produced by the insect queen as a consumable that could be used to explode. Using art was to fight in the form of explosions. It made Lu Jie look like a terrorist. However, such a battle method was extremely suitable for the current situation. On the battlefield, everything happened in the blink of an eye. No matter what method was used, he had to stop these diamond blade worms from approaching. If these blade worms were allowed to get close, they would not be able to stop the dimensional rift's advancement. Even Lin Yuan, Lu Jie, and Zhou Luo would not be able to keep their lives. A portion of the flesh-mincing blade worms charged at the 25 diamond blade worms from the ground. The rest of the flesh-mincing blade worms were transported underground. Through the source sand, these self-destructing flesh-mincing blade worms were transported directly below the diamond blade worms. Lu Jie used the hurricane owlet moths to control the hurricane, using the power of the wind to restrict the diamond blade worm's speed. The hurricane blew up the yellow sand, giving Lin Yuan a chance to control the hurricane owlet moths. Amidst the yellow sand, a large number of ferromanganese chain swords appeared. When these ferromanganese chains locked onto the diamond blade worms, the diamond blade worms would immediately break free from them. However, coupled with the fierce hurricane, the speed of the 25 diamond blade worms was reduced by more than 70%. All of the insect units were ready to go. Lu Jie looked at the 150 ladybugs in front of the lava dragon lizard and gritted his teeth. The 150 shield ladybugs flapped their wings and flew towards the 25 diamond blade worms. Zhou Luo, who had been releasing his shield all this while, immediately shouted. Lava dragon lizard, use elemental release. In an instant, a thin layer of elemental energy suddenly surged on the lava shields of the 50 shield ladybugs flying at the forefront. The entire shield was covered in a layer of raging fire. Following that, the hurricane owlet moths that were driving the hurricane stopped. Instead, they swooped down on the 25 diamond blade worms. From top to bottom, from left to right, an explosion rang out at the same time. A massive amount of energy was retracted into the insect queen's body, causing a layer of green energy flame to light up on the surface of the insect queen's body. This was a sign that the insect queen's body was full of energy. At this moment, the sea of insects that Lu Jie and Lin Yuan had created was almost completely depleted. It could be said that apart from Lin Yuan's extreme token, everyone had used all the power they could use in this attack. They had not held back at all. At that moment, Lin Yuan suddenly thought of the effect of the lava dragon lizard's exclusive skill. Zhou Luo's exclusive skill, elemental release, had released the fire elemental energy from the lava dragon lizard's new head, effectively increasing the power of the explosion. When Lin Yuan had been recruiting white-clothed followers, he had focused on freezing cold's contracted phase in the purchase with no loss store. Lin Yuan had only taken a glance at Zhou Luo's phase and had not paid much attention to their abilities or exclusive skills. Especially after the iron bone splitting lizard had evolved into a lava dragon lizard, its abilities and exclusive skills must have changed a lot. He used Morbius True Data to check on the lava dragon lizard he was riding on. Fey name, lava dragon lizard, Fey species, iguana/giant iguana, Fey grade, diamond, 1/10, Fey type, earth/fire, Fey quality, fantasy eye abilities frowny face sturdy head lizard ram, strengthens the skull's hardness and condenses all the body's strength on the head for a ram. Shield tail block, strengthens the skin on the tail to form a shield's keratin, effectively blocking damage. Lizard roar, enhances the flow of blood in the body through the roar, filling the bones on the lizard's skin with blood and increasing defense. Thick shield, casts a double-layered shield on a single target. The hollow part of the double-layered shield can effectively cushion physical and energy damage. Lava sturdy shield, fuses the body's earth-type and fire-type energy into lava energy and casts a single-layered shield filled with lava energy on multiple targets. Shield regeneration, uses the body's energy to repair the broken shield. Before the body's energy is exhausted, as long as the shield doesn't receive a destructive attack, it will immediately be repaired. Exclusive skill Frowny Face Unyielding Iron Bones. When receiving an external attack, each attack will consume a corresponding amount of combat power to increase the body's defense until the end of life. Elemental Release. Releases the elemental energy contained in the body to cast any outer layer of the shield, enhancing the shield's original elemental characteristics. After this check, if Lin Yuan really wanted to evaluate this lava dragon lizard, he could only say that its abilities could barely be considered average. It was far inferior to Shi Su's contracted Silent Thunder Armored Crocodile's defense ability, which was more flexible and comprehensive. Moreover, the normal, elite, and bronze abilities only had an effect on the lava dragon lizard itself. This greatly reduced the lava dragon lizard's usefulness as a defense-type Fey in a team. However, Lin Yuan felt that the exclusive skill, Unyielding Iron Bones, was a little special. When Lu Jie had been commanding the battle earlier, he had already made the insect queen transform into an insect base and continue to produce insect swarms. He was trying to make up for the losses from the previous battle. The smoke and dust from the distant explosion had yet to disperse. However, at this moment, a strange hiss suddenly rang out amidst the silent explosion. Second update. Sob, 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 I beg for monthly votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 507. A strange hissing sound rang out in the midst of the silent explosion. It sounded like a final wail. But no matter how one listened to it, there was an unconcealable sense of despair and madness in the wail. Upon hearing this strange cry that was mixed with despair and madness, Lin Yuan immediately thought, not good. The blade worms were war machines produced by the Blade Queen Bee, a war-type carcinoma Fey. Under normal circumstances, they were born purely for battle and did not have any emotions. But now, the blade worm's screeches were clearly emotional. This situation meant that the Blade Queen Bee was dead. Only after the Blade Queen Bee died would the suppressed genes in the blade worms be released. Lin Yuan summoned Genius and took off the strange mask that Hu Quan had created. Instead, he put on Genius's tool transformation mask. Then, Lin Yuan carefully examined his surroundings. The time of the Blade Queen Bee's death was too coincidental. It coincided with the moment when the 25 diamond blade worms were attacked. Logically speaking, the self-destruction of such a large swarm of bugs should have been enough to kill 25 diamond blade worms. But due to the Blade Queen Bee's coincidental death, the suppressed genes in the blade worms were released. Who knew how many blade worms had survived the explosion? Lin Yuan put on Genius's tool transformation mask and looked around, but he did not find anything. Even if he did not find anything, it meant something. The Blade Queen Bee was a Cancer Fey that excelled in concealment. It would not have died for no reason. For this to happen, it meant that someone had killed the Blade Queen Bee. When the dust settled, the diamond blade worms were piled up into a small mountain. The outer layer of the blade worms had all turned into charcoal in the explosion. At that moment, the mountain of 25 diamond blade worms suddenly began to shake. Suddenly, 8 blade worms that looked like sea urchins crawled out of the hill, their bodies covered in blade horn-like thorns. This could be seen from the densely packed cuticle on the blade worms' bodies. These blade worms had suffered serious injuries in the explosion, even with so many diamond-level comrades protecting them from the outside. Using true data, the 8 blade worms that crawled out of the cave must have been at least diamond rank before. Now that they had recovered from their injuries, the highest level they had was still Diamond level 5. Even the weakest among them had reached Diamond rank level 2. Under the densely packed blade keratin, Lin Yuan could vaguely see that the 8 surviving diamond blade worms' hardened purple-gray skin had now turned purple-red. The 8 blade worms were not in a hurry to charge toward Lin Yuan's group. Instead, it turned around and let out a sorrowful cry towards the distance. With the death of the blade queen bee, it was the end of the blade worms. Amidst their sorrowful cries, the aura of the 8 blade worms grew stronger and stronger. At that moment, an intense dimensional fluctuation came from afar. This time, the frequency of the dimensional fluctuation was extremely high. The high-frequency dimensional fluctuation formed a whistling sound that sounded like boiling water. The sudden dimensional fluctuation formed a whistle, causing Lin Yuan, Lu Jie, and Zhou Luo's expressions to change in horror. The sound coming from the dimensional hub meant that the dimensional rift's evolution would be completed within an hour. Given the lava dragon lizard speed, it would take at least 50 minutes to reach the dimensional hub from where Lin Yuan was standing. Moreover, this was under the condition that there were no obstacles along the way. Even if Lu Jie's insect queen created hurricane owlet moths in groups of 4 and controlled the wind element to fly Lin Yuan at full speed, it would take at least half an hour to reach the dimensional hub. It could be said that time waited for no man. Everything was imminent. What's more, there were 8 diamond blade worms blocking his way. Behind the determined expression on Zhou Luo's face, there was suddenly an extremely serious look of hope. Zhou Luo turned to Lin Yuan and asked in a serious tone. "Young master, what does it feel like to be a hero?" Lin Yuan was thinking about how to get through the current crisis. When he heard Zhou Luo's question, he was startled. He felt that Zhou Luo's question was very strange. However, Lin Yuan still answered. "I don't know what it feels like to be a hero." After the incident at Millstone Town, Lin Yuan had only used Black's identity during the Celestial Stairway duel in the Star Web Tower. In addition, Lin Yuan was too lazy to browse the forums. He didn't even join Black's fan club. Therefore, Lin Yuan had never experienced the feeling of being a hero. When Zhou Luo heard Lin Yuan's words, he was startled. However, Lin Yuan continued to speak. "Some things require someone to carry the burden. I'm not a true hero, and I won't try my best to be a hero. However, if I really encounter it, I won't shirk my responsibilities." After hearing Lin Yuan's words, Zhou Luo's eyes suddenly flickered with a special expression. There seemed to be glowing spots of light in this special expression. The radiant light constantly emitted from Zhou Luo's eyes, causing Zhou Luo's originally determined expression to have a hint of solemnity. Lin Yuan was about to make arrangements for the battle when he heard Zhou Luo speak. "Young master, you guys go to the dimensional hub. Leave these 8 strange insects to me and my old partner." When Lin Yuan heard Zhou Luo's words, he looked at Zhou Luo deeply. When Lu Jie was also commanding the insect queen to create the hurricane owlet moths, he suddenly looked at Zhou Luo with a different kind of recognition. When Zhou Luo saw Lin Yuan and Lu Jie looking at him, he smiled freely. "Don't worry, my old partner is very stubborn. Once I'm done with these 8 strange insects, I'll meet up with you guys at the front. After that, we'll leave this place together." As Zhou Luo spoke, he looked in the direction of the dimensional hub with a worried expression. However, when he looked at the 8 diamond blade worms, Zhou Luo's eyes were only free and determined. Lin Yuan took a deep breath. Zhou Luo had stepped forward to stop the 8 blade worms that had activated their hidden genes after the death of the blade queen bees. They must have been prepared to die. Even if the lava dragon lizard was a diamond/fantasy breed, it was still just Diamond Eye, and it was a defense-type fae. First more, end of this chapter. Chapter 508. Lu Jie had already created 8 hurricane owlet moths and said to Lin Yuan, "Brother Zhou's decision is right. The 2 of us will continue forward. If we encounter any more danger, I'll take the lead. We must send young master to the dimensional hub." Upon hearing Lu Jie's words, Lin Yuan felt that something heavy was pressing down on his heart. Lin Yuan understood the meaning behind Lu Jie's words, and Lu Jie's words were also very clear. Lu Jie had made the same decision as Zhou Luo. At that moment, Lin Yuan's determination to prevent the dimensional rift's evolution did not waver. He just felt that relying solely on his own strength was still too weak in the face of such a disaster. Lin Yuan turned around and spoke to Zhou Luo. "Brother Zhou, I want to give you something." When Lin Yuan and Lu Jie called him Brother Zhou, Zhou Luo was stunned. A sense of recognition rose in his heart. The feeling of being recognized by his companions warmed Zhou Luo's heart. When Zhou Luo heard Lin Yuan's words, he stretched out his hand. However, he still had some doubts in his heart. What exactly is Lin Yuan going to give me? However, when Zhou Luo saw what Lin Yuan took out, he quickly used both hands instead of one. The heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls of various attributes were piled together in the spirit lock spatial zone. He took out all the fire elemental pearls produced by the scorching elemental shellfish and the earth elemental pearls produced by the thick earth shellfish and put them in Zhou Luo's hands. Lin Yuan had spent all the elemental pearls previously. The amount he had on hand was only the production from 2 days of time. However, they had produced a total of 100 pills in the past 2 days. Most of them were earth element heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls. The fire element heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls only took up a small portion of them due to the absorption of the twin red pagoda. Zhou Luo's lava dragon lizard was a fire-earth dual elemental fae. In addition, the lava dragon lizard's exclusive skill, elemental release, could ingeniously enhance the shield with elemental energy. It was obvious that these heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls could assist in releasing the lava dragon lizard's exclusive skill. Even though using heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls to replenish elemental energy in battle was a very wasteful action. However, these 100 heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls could greatly increase the lava dragon lizard's combat power. Time was of the essence. After giving the elemental pearls to Zhou Luo, Lin Yuan and Lu Jie flew toward the dimensional hub with 4 hurricane owlet moths each. Zhou Luo looked at the 100 heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls in his hand, sensing the massive elemental energy contained within them. Zhou Luo's determination to die suddenly gave birth to a trace of life. However, if this trace of life wave wanted to be converted into life force, it had to be reborn from death. He had to give it his all to kill these 8 diamond blade worms. Zhou Luo patted both of the lava Japalura's necks. He had done this countless times and it had long since become a habit that was akin to sleeping. Zhou Luo whispered to the lava Japalura. "Old friend, it's time for us to fight side by side again. Let us 2 salted fish do something that can make us shine." Upon hearing Zhou Luo's words, the lava Japalura activated its skill, Lizard Roar. In an instant, the bony protrusions on the lava Japalura's skin became stronger due to the blood rush. Immediately after, the lava Japalura covered its huge body with a thick shield. Then, it put on a layer of lava shield on top of the thick shield. Then, it raised its 2 heads and used all the strength in its body to ram into the 8 blade worms, directly hitting 2 diamond blade worms. The shield hit the blade worm's cuticles and let out a teeth-numbing sound. At that moment it was full of killing intent and blood. At that moment, Zhou Luo could not help but feel as though he had returned to his childhood. An extremely talented youth from a poor family. An iron bone iguana that had no teamwork in its skills and exclusive skills before silver. Along the way, it had swallowed countless darkness and suffered countless hardships. The sturdy head lizard ram, shield tail block, lizard roar, and the exclusive skill, unyielding iron bones, seemed to have been predestined in this battle. At that moment, the effects of these skills and exclusive skills were displayed to the extreme. The lizard roar, the headbutt, and the sound of the cuticles hitting the lizard tail shield. Behind these tragic sounds, a man and a lizard were building a barrier for the entire Indigo Azure City, isolating it from the Class 5-dimensional rift's monstrous waves. The tragic sound was like the sound of nature at this moment, becoming an impassioned song amidst the waves of yellow sand that were stirred up. One after another, the heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls were crushed by Zhou Luo. However, he felt that the lava Japalura had absorbed too much elemental energy, and its perception of elemental energy had become a little sluggish. Zhou Luo looked at the remaining 3 diamond blade worms that were still able to stand up. He ordered the lava dragon lizard to remove the shield on its body. After removing its shield, the lava Japalura's body was full of bloody holes caused by the cuticles. The entire lava Japalura looked like it was bathed in blood. Even Zhou Luo's legs had been torn open by the cuticles of the blade worms. At that moment, Zhou Luo was on the lava Japalura's body, injecting the last trace of his spiritual power into it. Although the spiritual energy in Zhou Luo's body had been exhausted, at this moment, Zhou Luo, who was 7 feet tall, stood with his back straight. His lofty sentiments were filled with radiant glory. The dull sounds of the cuticles piercing into the shield continued. When the last diamond blade worm fell to the ground and could no longer get up, it could only squirm. The 10-meter-long lava Japalura crashed to the ground, and Zhou Luo also fell to the ground. Said Zhou Luo as he stood up shakily. He looked at the lava Japalura, which was on the verge of death and was on its last breath. Old friend, your exclusive skill, unyielding iron bones, allowed us to last until the end. We survived. Thank you. With that, Zhou Luo summoned the bronze X/epic dark snake dragon lizard that he had contracted but had not had the time to nurture. The moment the dark snake dragon lizard appeared, it immediately unleashed a torrent of dark elemental energy at the wriggling blade worm. Even after the dark snake dragon lizard had emptied its energy, the blade worm was still breathing, but it no longer had the strength to squirm. Zhou Luo picked up a broken cuticle from the ground and walked in front of the diamond blade worm. He personally pierced the sharp blade keratin into the fist-sized head of the blade worm. Zhou Luo suddenly understood what it felt like to be a hero. It was a feeling of wind and rain, of grass and trees falling. But with his own shoulders, he carried the grass and the birds flew. This feeling had nothing to do with praise. It was just a sense of mission that was engraved with radiance. The second was even better. End of chapter. Chapter 509. Zhou Luo raised his head, looked into the distance, and shouted with all his might. Lin Yuan, Lu Jia, it's all up to you now. After shouting, Zhou Luo staggered over to the lava dragon lizard. He took out some ointment made of spiritual ingredients from the phase storage box and was about to apply it on the lava dragon lizard. However, at that moment, when Zhou Luo's tense mind relaxed, he immediately felt dizzy from the excessive blood loss on his leg. The sudden dizziness caused Zhou Luo's vision to turn black. He fell beside the lava dragon lizard and fell into a deep sleep. Lin Yuan was currently being carried by 4 hurricane owlet moths toward the dimensional hub at the fastest speed possible. On one hand, Lin Yuan was worried about Zhou Luo's situation. On the other hand, he was rather surprised by the tranquility of the journey. The source sand grains had already been laid out at the dimensional hub's location. Lin Yuan had been urging the source sand to continuously create sand under the seabed with the dimensional hub as the center. The source sand grains had completely enveloped a 3-kilometer radius around the dimensional hub. The source sand was not sensitive to small vibrations on the seabed's surface, but it could easily sense violent vibrations. Within this range, Lin Yuan did not receive any information from the source sand about any violent vibrations on the seabed surface. There shouldn't be any large phase like the blade worms near the dimensional hub. The hurricane owlet moths carried Lin Yuan and Lu Jia for nearly 5 minutes, and Lin Yuan immediately saw many established strongholds below his feet. It was obvious that there had been people living here for a long time. Lu Jia looked at the strongholds and said to Lin Yuan in a deep voice, "This place is very close to the dimensional hub. We're already very close to the dimensional hub. Should we descend from here and walk to the dimensional hub, or should we let the hurricane owlet moths fly us there?" Lu Jia looked at the strongholds on the ground with vigilance. Although these strongholds looked rather dead from above, Lu Jia could not be sure if there were any spirit chi professionals in these strongholds. If there were, wouldn't they become 2 glaring live targets in the sky? Lin Yuan did not know why, but the closer he got to the dimensional hub, the more he felt a sense of urgency. The dimensional fluctuations here were simply too intense. If he did not immediately stop the dimensional rift's evolution, he would not feel at ease. Lin Yuan looked in the direction of the dimensional hub and said to Lu Jie. Brother Lu, let's rush over. After receiving Lin Yuan's answer, Lu Jie immediately commanded the insect queen to create 4 shield ladybugs. After the 4 shield ladybugs were created, they opened up the carapace on their backs and flapped the wings under the carapace. They were like 4 guards, ready to use their bodies as shields to block attacks from the ground at any time. However, the shield ladybug's flying speed clearly couldn't keep up with the hurricane owlet moth. Lu Jie let the insect queen execute its exclusive skill, Insect Swarm Frenzy, on the 4 shield ladybugs. At the cost of consuming the shield ladybug's life force, the shield ladybug could keep up with the hurricane owlet moth's speed. Long before he made the decision, he already had a solution for the strongholds under his feet. When it came to fighting platinum and diamond blade worms, the source sand could not do anything. However, when it came to demolishing homes, the source sand was definitely number 1. Following Lin Yuan's command, the land within a 3-kilometer radius turned into a surging world of yellow sand. The stronghold built on the seabed was instantly engulfed by the surging yellow sand. In the process of being engulfed, it was also crushed by the sand particles and became a part of the sea of sand. Lu Jie's eyelids twitched when he saw this scene. He could not help but think of the diamond earth-turning giant elephants that Wen Yu had found to flatten the manor. Even when the earth-turning giant elephants had flattened the land, it had not been as spectacular as this surging sea of sand. Lu Jie suddenly felt that it was not strange at all that Lin Yuan had so many resources on hand. Just by buying sand, he could earn quite a lot in a day. Lin Yuan realized that the source sand he had contracted either had the ability to seek treasures or was a money grubber. After the source sand had engulfed the land where the stronghold was built, it had actually found plenty of resources. Among them were many golden metal discs that Lin Yuan needed. However, according to the source sand's feedback, the sea of sand had not engulfed any life forms. Moreover, those golden metal discs were almost all piled up together. This was really strange. However, Lin Yuan did not think too much at this time because the hub of the evolving dimensional rift soon appeared in his line of sight. This was the first time Lin Yuan had seen what a dimensional hub looked like. For some reason, Lin Yuan felt that the dimensional hub was a little familiar. No matter how he looked at it, it was a bit like the stone pillar carvings that appeared after Morbius had the spirit chi condensation ability in his spirit lock spatial zone, as well as the stone bowl placed on the stone pillar carvings. However, the container on the dimensional hub was much larger than the stone bowl in the spirit lock spatial zone. After taking a closer look, Lin Yuan found that there were 9 source-type items and an unknown rainbow ball of light in the container on the dimensional hub in front of him. Lu Jie heaved a sigh of relief when he arrived at the location of the dimensional hub. I finally made it in time. There are actually 9 source-type items inside. But even if there are 9 source-type items, logically speaking, a Class 5 dimensional rift shouldn't have opened. While speaking, Lu Jie also focused his gaze on the rainbow ball of light. After seeing the rainbow ball of light, Lu Jie's expression suddenly froze, and he said with some uncertainty. Rainbow? Could this be a sacred source life form? Upon hearing Lu Jie mention the sacred source life form, Lin Yuan's eyes fiercely stared at the rainbow ball of light. Lin Yuan had heard his master, the Moon Empress, and the Mother of Bloodbath mention sacred source life forms more than once. However, now that Lu Jie mentioned the sacred source life form, Lin Yuan did not have any intention of admiring the rainbow ball of light. Instead, he only felt his hair stand on end. Sacred source lifeforms could only be produced in Class 5 dimensional rifts, and each Class 5 dimensional rift could only produce 1 sacred source lifeform. Now, a sacred source lifeform had actually appeared in a Class 4 dimensional hub that was about to evolve to Class 5. This was simply a shocking conspiracy. When the dimensional rift evolved from Class 4 to Class 5, another sacred source lifeform was bound to descend. If that was the case, who knew to what extent the water world dimensional rift outside Indigo Azure City would develop when the energy of the 2 sacred source lifeforms overlapped? Just as he was about to activate the extreme token in the flowing cloud pendant hanging on his chest, Lin Yuan saw a hazy shadow not far from him through the mask that Genius had transformed into. The first one was even worse. Sob, sob, sob. The next chapter was pure dry goods. One of Lin Yuan's phase was about to undergo a qualitative change. Which was more interesting to watch? Evolving phase or trading phase? End of this chapter. Chapter 5:10. Lin Yuan immediately turned his head and carefully looked at the empty space where he had vaguely seen a hazy shadow. However, when he looked at it again, he found that the hazy shadow he had vaguely seen before had disappeared. After checking for a while to no avail, he thought his eyes were playing tricks on him. He took a deep breath and focused his attention on the dimensional hub's location. For some reason, Lu Jia, who was standing beside Lin Yuan, felt a sense of danger lingering around him. Lu Jia was very familiar with this sense of crisis. Every time he encountered danger in the wilderness, he would always have this feeling. The sense of crisis could be considered the combat intuition of a spirit chi professional after going through hundreds of battles. Now, Lu Jia felt that the sense of crisis was getting stronger and stronger. At that moment, Lu Jia suddenly recalled that Lin Yuan had just turned his head to look at an empty space not far away. He should have also felt an inexplicable sense of crisis. Lu Jia also turned around and looked toward the open space that Lin Yuan had been looking at. Lu Jia felt goosebumps all over his body when he saw it. He immediately shouted, "Yuan, defend!" Immediately after, Lu Jia commanded the 4 shield ladybugs that had landed on standby beside him to block in front of Lin Yuan. This was because Lu Jia discovered that a figure had suddenly appeared in that empty space. The figure threw a grayish-purple crystal at Lin Li. When Lin Yuan heard Lu Jia's shout for defense, he subconsciously commanded the source sand to produce a large number of feathers from the guard's sand under his feet. These feathers, which were made of the day and night spirit silver, had been altered to look like the cloud crane's gray feathers. At the same time, since the source sand had been upgraded to Fantasy 2, he had added another cubic meter of day and night spirit silver. Therefore, when the feathers formed the 4 wings, they appeared more agile and elegant than the previous wings, and also appeared to be denser. At this moment, the 4 shield ladybugs had already collided with the purplish-gray crystal that was flying over. After colliding with the 4 shield ladybugs, the purplish-gray crystal directly exploded, rippling a terrifying energy wave. Upon seeing that, Lu Jia did not hesitate at all. He instinctively took his insect queen, which had returned to its demon form, and pounced toward Lin Yuan. Each of Lin Yuan's wings was close to 3 meters long. Lin Yuan instinctively protected Lu Jia under the 4 wings formed by the day and night spirit silver. Then, he poured spiritual power into the 4 wings formed by the day and night spirit silver. The wings, which were originally black and seemed to be able to absorb light, instantly turned sparkling white. Lu Jia was currently facing Lin Yuan. When he saw Lin Yuan take a deep breath, a heartfelt smile appeared on his face. She said softly to Lin Yuan, "Lin Yuan, I made an appointment with you and when you. I'm going to be absent on the grass 10 years later." Before Lin Yuan could say anything, Lu Jia had already turned around and reached out to caress the insect queen lovingly. Then, he shouted at the insect queen. "Transform into a manufacturing form. Use insect swarm frenzy on the main body." Following Lu Jia's instructions, the insect queen instantly expanded. However, the base that the insect queen had transformed into was only 2 meters tall. The insect queen's body that had transformed into the base was still burning with a layer of energy flames formed by the energy recovered from the explosion of the entire insect swarm. The insect queen was also resolutely carrying out Lu Jia's orders. A layer of red halo immediately appeared on the insect queen's body after it used insect swarm frenzy on itself. Lin Yuan could already feel how massive the grayish-purple energy that bombarded his 4 wings formed by the day and night spirit silver was. In just an instant, the day and night spirit silver, which was an extremely sturdy gold spiritual material, was blasted into pieces by this grayish-purple energy. Immediately after, the grayish-purple energy bombarded the insect queen's base. Since the 4 wings formed by the day and night spirit silver had been blasted into pieces by this energy wave, Lin Yuan was completely exposed to the air. Lu Jia, who was blocking in front of Lin Yuan, used all the strength in his body to push Lin Yuan away with a backhand. Then, the grayish-purple energy blasted a huge hole in the insect queen's insect tribe base. At the same time, this spreading grayish-purple energy also blasted Lu Jia, who was still in the position of pushing Lin Yuan away, behind the insect queen. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. Lu Jia did not even have time to say more to Lin Yuan before he was already hit by this grayish-purple energy. However, Lu Jia had already expressed all the words he wanted to say with his actions. Lin Yuan was pushed nearly 10 meters away by Lu Jia and fell miserably on the boiling sea of sand. Lin Yuan stood up and immediately dashed to Lu Jia's side. Upon seeing Lu Jia and the insect queen's current state, Lin Yuan only felt a rush of hot blood directly to his brain. Lin Yuan's eyes instantly turned red. The insect queen had now turned into the fist-sized purple flesh cocoon that Lin Yuan had first seen. However, there was a hole on this purple flesh cocoon, and a large amount of purplish-gray thick water flowed out of the hole. Lu Jia's entire body had been blasted by this purplish-gray energy until only his torso was left. Half of his torso was also incomplete. Like the insect queen, a large amount of purplish-gray thick water flowed out of the wound on Lu Jia's incomplete body. Obviously, the grayish-purple energy attack just now contained a terrifying poison. At that moment, the gray figure in the distance, which had just appeared, had a satisfied expression on his face. It was as though he had just finished watching a movie and was walking over gracefully. His gray eyes looked at Lin Yuan and Lu Jia, who had fallen on the ground, and he smacked his lips. What a touching and moving brotherhood. Hee, this moment should be accompanied by a glass of wine to savor. You're obviously not very strong, but you barely survived the attack of a major-grade Fae. Congratulations. However, you won't be so lucky next, because your end has come. After saying that, the gray-haired, gray-eyed man waved his hand and summoned a giant dog with 3 ferocious heads. The moment the 3-headed dog appeared, it let out 3 deafening roars. The gray-haired, gray-eyed man said to himself. At first, I was still afraid that I was not strong enough, but now it seems that I, Hunting Ashes, am destined to complete Lord 7th Page War's decree. Lin Yuan did not care about the gray-haired, gray-eyed man or the 3-headed giant dog that the gray-haired, gray-eyed man had summoned. Lin Yuan's eyes seemed to be seeping blood. He waved his hand and summoned the jasmine lily. Then, he removed the vitality imprint on his forehead that stored a large amount of vitality energy. At the same time, he activated the extreme token that the Moon Empress had given him. The second cycle. My body is almost recovered. The third cycle will start next Monday. Moi. End of this chapter. Chapter 5:11. When the extreme token on Lin Yuan's chest was activated by the spiritual power, it seemed to turn into a full moon that hung in front of Lin Yuan's chest and emitted gentle moonlight. The moonlight was like water, shining on Lin Yuan's body as though it could seep into his heart. The gray-haired, gray-eyed man's expression changed when he saw the gentle moonlight rising from Lin Yuan's chest. He suddenly had a feeling that everything would eventually fuse into this moonlight and never wither. However, after this moonlight, which carried light smoke and was not tainted by a speck of dust, left Lin Yuan's chest, it instantly lost its original gentleness. In an instant, the mountains and rivers changed color. With Lin Yuan's body as the origin, it was as though a waterfall of moonlight that connected heaven and earth had risen from Lin Yuan's chest. The moonlight was like a waterfall that illuminated the sky. It had an unparalleled majesty and dominance. The waterfall of moonlight spiraled in the sky and instantly condensed into a bright moon. At that moment, the world in the evolving dimensional rift seemed to have been taken over by this bright moon that was releasing moonlight brilliance in the sky the moment this bright moon condensed. The bright moon rippled, and the clear brilliance that emerged from the ripples condensed into thousands of moonlight satin. The silk-like cold moonlight poured down from the bright moon, not giving the gray-haired, gray-eyed man and the fantasy breed Cerberus any time to react. The gray-haired, gray-eyed man and the fantasy breed Cerberus were sublimated into nothingness under this moonlight. Lin Yuan looked at the scene of heaven and earth changing color after he activated the extreme token and could not help but be a little shocked. Not only were the gray-haired, gray-eyed man and the fantasy breed Cerberus instantly obliterated by the moonlight. Even the solid dimensional barrier at the hub of the dimensional rift, which was formed during the evolving dimensional rift, was constantly sublimated under this moonlight. Under the illumination of the moonlight, it continued to sublimate and thin at a speed visible to the naked eye. This was under the situation where the moonlight did not target the dimensional barrier. This made Lin Yuan very surprised at the Moon Empress' strength. Lin Yuan could not help but sigh. It turned out that the Moon Empress was actually so powerful. Just by looking at the gray-haired, gray-eyed man's sneak attack, Lin Yuan knew that the gray-haired, gray-eyed man did not belong to the Radiance Federation. Lin Yuan also firmly remembered the 7th page war that the gray-haired, gray-eyed man had mentioned, as well as his strange name or address, Hunting Ashes. He did not know who 7th page war and Hunting Ashes were referring to. However, if he could get out and bring this news to his master, the Moon Empress, he wouldn't be able to do so. With the Moon Empress' knowledge, it was very likely that she knew what kind of faction was plotting all of this. But at that moment, apart from placing a portion of his attention on the Dimensional Rift's hub, he was waiting for the Dimensional Rift's barrier to disappear under the moonlight. He placed all his remaining attention on Lu Jie. The vitality from the vitality imprint on Lin Yuan's forehead was constantly pouring into Lu Jie's body through the jasmine lily. However, during the healing process, he realized that given his jasmine lily's current grade, even if he used up the huge amount of energy in the vitality imprint, the jasmine lily would not be able to withstand it. At most, it would only be able to keep Lu Jie alive for a while and not let him die immediately. While Lin Yuan was using the jasmine lily to keep Lu Jie alive, he found that the purplish-gray toxin-infected wound on Lu Jie's incomplete torso was oozing more and more pus. The purplish-gray toxin was spreading rapidly, and even Lu Jie's cheeks were now stained with a layer of purplish-gray. Lin Yuan walked in front of Lu Jie and smelled the pus and blood oozing out of Lu Jie's wound. He suddenly felt a tingling sensation in his spirit. Lin Yuan could not help but hold his breath. When Lin Yuan saw the pus constantly oozing out of Lu Jie's wound, he initially thought that the purplish-gray toxin was a toxin that was extremely destructive to flesh and blood. However, he did not expect that the purplish-gray toxin's true effect was not only a flesh and blood toxin that was extremely destructive to flesh and blood, but it was also a spiritual toxin that caused great damage to the spirit. Lin Yuan hurriedly let all the jasmine lily's flower heads head toward Lu Jie's head and injected a huge amount of vitality as quickly as possible. He wanted to try and see if he could use the huge amount of vitality to dispel the purplish-gray spiritual toxin. Even if he could not, he had to protect Lu Jie's brain and suppress the purplish-gray spiritual toxin from spreading to Lu Jie's brain. Otherwise, even if he could keep Lu Jie alive, after his spirit was destroyed, he would become a vegetable without even an ordinary consciousness. However, Lin Yuan immediately found that even if the jasmine lily sped up the speed of the vitality pouring into Lu Jie's body, it did suppress the spread of the purplish-gray spiritual toxin in Lu Jie's body. At the same time, the huge amount of vitality seemed to be nourishing the purplish-gray toxin. This made the purplish-gray toxin more active in the parts that had already spread to, preventing Lu Jie's physical recovery. Originally, after Lu Jie was injured and the purplish-gray toxin entered his body, he felt that his spirit was constantly experiencing an unbearable death by 1,000 cuts. The sharp pain in his spirit made Lu Jie completely unable to feel the pain from his body. During this process, Lu Jie's spiritual power became weaker and weaker, and his thoughts became more and more chaotic. He even faintly felt that his spirit had been cut off from the insect queen. However, with all the jasmine lily's flower heads pouring vitality together, Lu Jie's chaotic spirit seemed to have suddenly regained a trace of clarity. Lu Jie could faintly see Lin Yuan standing beside him and healing him. However, the more Lu Jie wanted to see the scene in front of him clearly, the more he could not see clearly due to the severe pain. Lu Jie wanted to open his mouth to speak, but he found that his jaw seemed to have been dislocated in the explosion. He could not open his teeth and spit out even a word. Lu Jie forced himself to stay awake and finally confirmed that it was indeed Lin Yuan standing beside him. The painful expression on Lu Jia's face suddenly revealed a relaxed smile. Lu Jia wanted to reach out to touch the Class 2 Creation Master's retainer crest on his chest, but he found that his spirit had started to become a little chaotic again. At the last moment, Lu Jia used all his strength but found that he still could not feel the familiar touch of the Class 2 Creation Master's retainer crest on his chest. Perhaps due to the severe pain in his spirit, Lu Jia did not realize that he had lost his arms and legs. The jasmine lily's boundless life energy continued to infuse Lu Jia's body with the stubborn purplish-gray spiritual poison. It continued to damage Lu Jia's already infected body. Just as Lin Yuan was about to despair, his eyes suddenly lit up. It was as though he had found the hope of new life in a desperate situation. First update. Hee. I'll update Lu Jia's version settings. End of this chapter. Chapter 5:12. Lin Yuan suddenly thought of the huge jar of silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar that his master had given him. The silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar could recover damaged origin and wash away impurities on the body. The purplish-gray poison had already fused with Lu Jia's body. This foreign harmful substance had obviously become a part of his body's impurities. At that thought, Lin Yuan immediately took action. He took out the jar of silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar from the amber button-shaped diamond face storage box. After taking out the big jar of silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar, he immediately took out the big bowl that he had used to consume the nectar. Lin Yuan filled the bowl with the silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar and looked at Lu Jia's pained face under the purplish-gray poison's torture. Lin Yuan's heart tightened even more. Just as he was about to open Lu Jia's mouth, he found that Lu Jia's jaw had been dislocated. Lin Yuan's hand pushed up forcefully, and with a click, Lu Jia's dislocated jaw was put back in place. He slowly poured the bowl full of silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar into Lu Jia's mouth. After finishing the bowl, he immediately tore off a piece of cloth from his moon-white spirit chi clothes. She rolled the cloth into a roll and fed it to Lu Jia. Lu Jia had experienced the pain of the silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar removing its impurities. Moreover, Lu Jia's body was still wreaking havoc with the purplish-gray poison. When the two kinds of pain overlapped, Lin Yuan was really afraid that Lu Jia would accidentally bite his tongue while enduring it. Soon, the silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar began to take effect in Lu Jia's body. However, the silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar's expression became even more painful. The silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar replenished Lu Jia's stamina, giving him the strength to struggle. Lu Jia's miserable struggle in a delirious state made Lin Yuan's eyes turn scarlet. Lin Yuan gritted his teeth and forced himself to calm down to check on Lu Jia's condition after consuming the silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar. Soon, he realized that the purplish-gray poison was no match for the silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar. As Lu Jia struggled violently, the purplish-gray poison turned into thick liquid and flowed out of his wound. At the same time, with the silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar's ability to remove impurities, Lu Jia's remaining torso secreted a large amount of filth. Lin Yuan was pleasantly surprised. The current situation proved that the purplish-gray poison had been completely removed from Lu Jia's body by the silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar. As for Lu Jia, he immediately fainted after the purplish-gray poison was removed from his body. He could finally let the jasmine lily use its exclusive skill, severed connection, to restore Lu Jia's damaged body in the explosion. However, the jasmine lily's current strength was still insufficient. With the jasmine lily's silver eye/fantasy eye strength, it wasn't enough to heal Lu Jia's severely damaged body. However, this was not an unsolvable problem for Lin Yuan. He was extremely glad that he had used Morbius' exclusive skill, the Pure Land of Bliss, to absorb the cold snow pine's world grace. He did not immediately use up the condensed spirit crystals. Instead, he kept them. He let the jasmine lily continue to supply vitality to keep Lu Jia alive. Then, he entered his spirit lock spatial zone under the moonlight. After he entered the spirit lock spatial zone, the wind speed rapid antelope quickly ran to his side. However, Lin Yuan did not have time to interact with the wind speed rapid antelope. When the wind-speed rapid antelope saw that Lin Yuan ignored it, it was not disappointed. He was like a little follower, following closely behind Lin Yuan. Perhaps the wind-speed rapid antelope sensed the anxious and serious expression on Lin Yuan's face, so it slowed down when it walked. It did not hop and hop as usual and tiptoed forward. Lin Yuan walked to the side of the spirit pool and grabbed the sea burial lotus flower, which was frantically devouring the pure spirit qi in the spirit lock spatial zone. After Lin Yuan's previous training, the sea burial lotus flower still remembered him. However, just as it was about to shake its flower branch and greet this enemy who had given it such a good living environment, Lin Yuan destroyed the flower. Lin Yuan had already ruthlessly ripped off the sea burial lotus flower's condensed sobbing sea crystals at its roots. The sea burial lotus flower's grade instantly dropped to normal after having its sobbing sea crystal removed. Lin Yuan continued to nurture the sea burial lotus flower, which had fallen to normal, in the spirit pool. With the pure and rich spirit qi in the spirit lock spatial zone, Lin Yuan knew that his actions would not affect the sea burial lotus flower's roots. Lin Yuan also took out the spirit qi crystals that he had not had time to count. After giving Gray 30 crystals, there were roughly 270 left. Then, he exited the spirit lock spatial zone. Lin Yuan was prepared to use the sobbing sea crystals that the sea burial lotus flower had condensed after squeezing out a sea region and the remaining 270 spirit qi crystals to raise the jasmine lily's grade to the maximum. Then, he would use the upgraded jasmine lily to heal Lu Jie's incomplete body. Lin Yuan did not dare to guarantee that the upgraded jasmine lily would definitely be able to heal Lu Jie. After all, with Lu Jie's current injuries, no one would be able to do anything if they were in his place. Lu Jie's weight of 75 kilograms had now been blasted to less than 75 kilograms. Even with the jasmine lily's exclusive skill, severed life, Lin Yuan still did not dare to guarantee such injuries. However, with this sea burial lotus flower, Lin Yuan was confident that he could raise the jasmine lily's grade from Fantasy I to Fantasy 3. When a fantasy breed phase grade reached Fantasy 3, it would inevitably undergo a metamorphosis. Moreover, when the jasmine lily's grade rose from silver, it was very likely that it would mutate. This made the jasmine lily's healing ability very likely to increase by several times. Lin Yuan was not in a hurry to let the jasmine lily use the sea burial lotus flower. Instead, he took out 9 spirit qi crystals and raised the jasmine lily's grade from silver I to silver X. Immediately after, he took out 10 spirit qi crystals and crushed them without even blinking. He let the silver X/Fantasy I jasmine lily absorb this huge amount of pure spiritual energy. During this process, the jasmine lily's body suddenly lit up with a dazzling emerald green luster. Emerald green lusters of different colors flickered on the strange flower petals, causing the entire jasmine lily to instantly rise with an emerald haze. As the emerald color of the strange flower flickered, it was as if all the emerald color was being transferred to the huge jasmine lily flower at the top that had not undergone the fasciation. The second update. There will be another update later. If everyone is tired, don't wait anymore. It might be very late. End of this chapter. Chapter 5:13. With a loud bang, the jasmine lily's main flower, which had yet to undergo fasciation, suddenly lit up with a luster amidst the rich emerald color. Lin Yuan looked over and found that the jasmine lily's huge flower, which had yet to undergo fasciation, actually had many fine crystal threads growing on it. These fine crystal threads gathered together and constantly intertwined and fused, finally seeming to become a complete crystal. Lin Yuan knew that this was due to the jasmine lily's crystallization during its promotion to gold. The jasmine lily's main flower, which had yet to undergo fasciation, seemed to have turned into a piece of rich emerald crystal. There seemed to be a few dark green flashes in the rich emerald crystal. As the crystallized main flower spun, the dark green luster only flashed once in a moment and was not obvious. However, the color contained in it was more dazzling than the entire crystallized emerald flower. At that moment, the jasmine lily's grade had risen from silver X/Fantasy I to gold I/Fantasy I. As Morbius Spirit Lock Healing Type Fey, the jasmine lily's grade was already the same as Lin Yuan's current main Fey, the source sand. Lin Yuan looked at the jasmine lily, which had advanced to gold, and sighed. It had to be said that it was a complete miracle that his jasmine lily could grow to its current appearance. An ordinary jasmine lily had undergone a rare group mutation among succulents and a rare fasciation mutation. Only high-grade succulents had a very small chance of undergoing a crystallization mutation. Lin Yuan did not know whether he should say that it was his fortune or the jasmine lily's fortune. Now that the gold/fantasy jasmine lily's appearance was out, probably no one would think that it was a jasmine lily. The jasmine lily's crystallized main flower released a healing light beam that faintly carried a mottled dark green luster. He could clearly feel that the jasmine lily's crystallized main flower's healing ability, was more than 10 times stronger than before. With such a healing ability and the boundless supply of life energy, Lu Jie's broken body began to slowly grow 4 limbs. However, although the limbs were slowly growing, Lu Jie's broken body did not show any signs of rebirth. Lu Jie's broken torso was not the most difficult problem that Lin Yuan was facing now. The most difficult problem was the 5 organs in Lu Jie's body that had been shattered in the purplish-gray energy explosion just now. Lin Yuan took another deep breath and began to work on the jasmine lily's evolution. 10 spirit chi crystals seemed to be free as Lin Yuan invested them into the evolved gold-eye jasmine lily. The jasmine lily's grade was also constantly increasing under the pouring of the spirit chi crystals. Gold 2. Gold rank level 3. It rose all the way to Gold X. Lin Yuan had spent a total of 90 spirit chi crystals. The moment the jasmine lily reached Gold X, Lin Yuan threw the sobbing sea crystal at its crystallized main flower. The jasmine crystal that jasmine was, the crystal was 2, and gold. The spirit chi tornado and sobbing sea crystals caused by the shattering of 100 spirit chi crystals allowed the jasmine lily to evolve again. During the jasmine lily's evolution process, apart from anticipation, Lin Yuan was also filled with endless apprehension. If the jasmine lily was still unable to heal Lu Jie after this evolution, Lin Yuan would no longer have any other means. Then Lin Yuan would no longer have any other means, and Lu Jie would really be finished. Lin Yuan suddenly recalled what Lu Jie had said when he had helped him block the purplish-gray energy that should have hit him. Lin Yuan. I've made an appointment with you and when you. I'm going to be absent on the grass 10 years later. Lin Yuan's thoughts went back to one evening when the mansion had just been built. It had been late autumn on the mansion's grass. At that time, endless summer, and Hu Quan had yet to join the mansion, and the mother of Bloodbath had yet to transform into a human form. At that time, he, Lu Jie, and Wen Yu had been enjoying the evening breeze on the grass, eating barbecue, and drinking wine. That cup of ale was the first time Lin Yuan had drunk wine in this life. Lin Yuan could not drink much in his previous life, and his face would immediately turn red after drinking a little wine. In this life, Lin Yuan found that he was still the same. After getting a little tipsy, Lin Yuan remembered sighing at that time. I hope everyone can still sit together on this grass 10 years later, enjoy the evening breeze, raise wine glasses, and talk about ideals. Lu Jie remembered what he had said casually. At that moment, Lin Yuan's eyes were red as he looked at Lu Jie, who had fallen asleep. He said softly, "None of us are allowed to be absent on that grass 10 years later." All of a sudden, the emerald haze that had risen from the jasmine lily, which had been evolving steadily, suddenly turned into a magnificent red. Lin Yuan hurriedly looked over and found that after the magnificent red light disappeared, the jasmine lily had changed drastically again. Even Lin Yuan did not dare to recognize it. At that moment, the jasmine lily's small body had shrunk to more than half its original size. Lin Yuan held the evolved jasmine lily in his hand and found that the size of the jasmine lily was now extremely suitable for him to carry. It was no longer like before, where it felt like he was holding 2 basketballs. However, if the current jasmine lily was not his contracted fae, even as a creation master, Lin Yuan would not think that it was a jasmine lily. At that moment, the jasmine lily's fasciated part had turned dark red, and its shape had been compressed into a vague square. It looked like a square flower bed with many strange flower carvings. Chapter 5:14. Ordinary people would not be able to recognize the jasmine lily when it had evolved into a gold/fantasy breed. However, some Class 4 and Class 5 scholars could still discover the jasmine lily's essence after investigation. However, Class 4 scholars could no longer see through the essence of the evolved jasmine lily. Even Class 5 scholars would not be able to carefully study the jasmine lily in its current state for a few days. No matter what, they would not be able to guess that the thing in front of them had evolved from a jasmine lily. Lin Yuan hurriedly used Morbius True Data to check the evolved jasmine lily's attributes. Normal spirit lock, jasmine lily, bud of mountain jade platinum I/fantasy I ability, heal, sad face fasciated flower stand. When used by the fasciated flower stand, it will heal the target in reverse and absorb the target's vitality. At the same time, it will let the target enter an extremely comfortable feeling. Crystallized main flower. When used by the crystallized main flower, it will heal the target in reverse and absorb a large amount of vitality in a short time. Bud of mountain jade. When used by the bud of mountain jade, it will heal the target in a positive direction. Rich vitality will be injected into the target's body through the bud of mountain jade, helping the target recover damaged vitality. Exclusive skill Frowny Face Recovery Imprint stores the healing energy that the jasmine lily normally releases. The contractor can activate the imprint to release the stored healing energy. Severed growth. Comprehend the mystery of plant growth. Even if the genetic model is damaged, the rich vitality can slowly continue to grow. After checking, Lin Yuan felt that his eyeballs almost popped out and fell to the ground. He hurriedly stopped using the jasmine lily's fasciated flower stand and blood-red crystallized main flower to continue using heal on Wuxia. If the fasciated flower stand and crystallized main flower continued to heal Wuxia, it would be him harming Wuxia. Lin Yuan couldn't figure out what went wrong no matter how hard he tried. Could it be because of the sea burial lotus flower's sobbing sea crystal? The sea burial lotus flower had condensed the sobbing sea crystal after stripping the entire ocean of vitality. After using the sobbing sea crystal to upgrade its quality, the jasmine lily had also assimilated a part of the sea burial lotus flower's characteristics. Could it have fused with heal? This was the first time Lin Yuan had heard of something like reverse healing. In that case, wouldn't my jasmine lily turn from a big blood bag that only knows how to donate blood into a vampire? Furthermore, the jasmine lily was now an indecent vampire. For any life form, absorbing their life energy was an extremely cruel method of harming them. If the crystallized main flower used heal to directly absorb a large amount of the target's life energy, it would be considered normal. However, when the fasciated flower terrace absorbed the target's life energy, it retained the extreme pleasure of healing the target. Sucking your blood and making you feel especially comfortable. This is what a considerate little cotton-padded jacket should do. God damn it. The direction of his affinity was towards healing and support. Why has the jasmine lily, a proper healing fae, become so reckless? At that moment, Lin Yuan actually did not have the face to activate the Iron Bucket Sister nurturing plan again. However, he had to swear to the heavens that he had never thought of letting the jasmine lily be so reckless. Thanks to True Data, the jasmine lily's name had changed from jasmine lily to jasmine lily bud of mountain jade. Moreover, it had been upgraded to platinum I/fantasy 3. The spirit chi crystals that Lin Yuan had saved from Morbius' exclusive skill, Pure Land of Bliss, to absorb the cold snow pine's world grace, had been consumed during the jasmine lily's evolution. A total of 199 spirit chi crystals and an entire piece of sea burial lotus flower had been consumed to upgrade the jasmine lily from silver I/fantasy I to platinum I/fantasy 3. Now, Lin Yuan only had 71 spirit chi crystals left. In order to heal Wuxia, Lin Yuan had chosen to upgrade his only healing fae, the jasmine lily. It was tantamount to giving up a good opportunity to use so many spirit chi crystals to enhance his combat ability. Unexpectedly, the jasmine lily, which was originally the most well-behaved, had suddenly become reckless. It had changed from a proper healing type fae to a big needle that could suck milk. If the gold I/fantasy 2 source sand had given him platinum combat power and the capital to fight in the Radiance 100 sequence battle, then the gold I/fantasy 2 source sand had given him the combat power of platinum and the capital to fight in the Radiance 100 sequence. Now, apart from the Radiance 100 sequence competition, this Platinum I/Fantasy 3 Jasmine Lily would allow Lin Yuan to have a stable foothold in the Radiance 100 sequence. It could be said that in a real battle, the Platinum I/Fantasy 3 Jasmine Lily would directly surpass the Source Sand and become Lin Yuan's main combat fae. As a healing-type spirit chi professional with a Platinum/Fantasy breed healing-type fae, Lin Yuan would be in high demand wherever he went. In fact, in Lin Yuan's opinion, the Platinum I/Fantasy 3 Jasmine Lily, bud of Mountain Jade, was a little strange no matter how he looked at it. The Jasmine Lily's original part had turned from a vibrant green to a blood-like red, giving up its healing ability. However, at the same time, a bud of Mountain Jade bloomed at the top. The bud of Mountain Jade had perfectly inherited the Jasmine Lily's original healing ability. This was equivalent to the Jasmine Lily having an additional attack ability out of thin air. With that thought, Lin Yuan suddenly felt that the Jasmine Lily was reckless. Reckless was wonderful. Reckless croak. So what if it was a healing-type fae? A healing-type fae should be reckless. Anyway, it could still be healed. It would draw your blood and return my blood. I don't care if you feel good or not, I'll feel good anyway. Moreover, with the fasciated flower stand, it wouldn't do even if you felt bad. Time was tight, so Lin Yuan didn't check the Jasmine Lily, bud of Mountain Jade, that had just evolved into a Platinum I/Fantasy 3 Jasmine Lily. Instead, he let the bud of Mountain Jade at the top of the Jasmine Lily's crystal-like main flower perform heal on Wuxia. Then, Lin Yuan injected the majestic vitality from the vitality imprint into the bud of Mountain Jade at the top of the Jasmine Lily. The emerald flower bud on the Jasmine Lily's blood-red crystal flower sprayed out a mist of life energy that resembled a mist. The continuous vitality energy mist landed on Lu Jie's body, and his broken body quickly recovered in the energy mist. First chapter. End of this chapter. Chapter 5:15. Lu Jie's broken body began to slowly recover in the mist of vitality that the bud of Mountain Jade sprayed. Lin Yuan's face immediately lit up. Then he closed his eyes and carefully sensed the current condition of Lu Jie's body. As the vitality released by the bud of Mountain Jade wandered in Lu Jie's body, Lin Yuan could feel the mist of vitality making Lu Jie's broken organs in his chest grow back together. After feeling all this, the big stone in Lin Yuan's heart was finally put down. However, the recovery speed of Lu Jie's broken body in the mist of vitality was a little too slow. Lin Yuan looked at the dimensional hub in the distance, which was eroded by the moonlight, with only a thin layer of the spatial barrier left. Lin Yuan knew that if he continued to treat Lu Jie so slowly, he would not have enough time. Lin Yuan tried to inject all the vitality in the vitality imprint on his forehead into the bud of Mountain Jade at the top of the Jasmine Lily. The vitality in Lin Yuan's vitality imprint had been accumulated when the Jasmine Lily had been at Silver I/Fantasy I. The Jasmine Lily was now at Platinum I/Fantasy 3. Therefore, the bud of Mountain Jade received all the vitality that Lin Yuan had poured into it. The tiny bud of Mountain Jade growing on the long tassel began to tremble violently after receiving the tremendous amount of life energy. At that moment, the dark green stamen that stretched out of the bud of Mountain Jade rippled gently. The gentle ripples produced dark green ripples filled with dense vitality. These ripples eventually condensed into a dark green water droplet. When Lin Yuan saw the dark green water formed by the dark green stamen sticking out of the bud of Mountain Jade, he suddenly had a thought. If life could be described with color, then it must be this dark green color in front of him. This dark green water droplet contained all the vitality in the vitality imprint on Lin Yuan's forehead. The vitality imprint on Lin Yuan's forehead was now empty. This drop of dark green water droplet landed on Lu Jie's body and immediately produced layers of emerald ripples. It was like a layer of emerald light cocoon that wrapped Lu Jie's entire body. Soon, the emerald cocoon of light shattered, revealing Lu Jie lying on the ground, looking as good as new. Lin Yuan knew that Lu Jie's spirit had been on the verge of collapse due to the impact of the purplish-gray mental toxin and the silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar. Lin Yuan did not have any phase that could effectively treat mental injuries. Lin Yuan grabbed a handful of cinnabar sweet osmanthus petals from the spirit lock spatial zone, crushed them, put them in Lu Jie's mouth, and helped him swallow them with water. After that, he used Morbius' calm heart skill on Lu Jie. It could be said that he had done his best to save Lu Jie. It could even be said that he had taken a considerable risk. As a C-rank spirit chi professional, Lin Yuan could only control fays that were at most Gold X/fantasy breed. Lin Yuan had only made a bold attempt because the Gold/fantasy breed Jasmine Lily could not heal Lu Jie. He had come up with this idea because he had heard from his master, the Moon Empress, that when some top factions nurtured their juniors, they would use the rolling tier method. He would use the rolling grade method to allow his juniors' contracted fays to break through the highest grade that a spirit chi professional could contract. It was said that it required a rare fae called the Starlight Wisdom Cloud, as well as a lot of other things. It was not worth it to spend so much money to only allow a fae that could be controlled by one person to break through a small grade limit. However, the reason those top factions would do this was that this small grade was enough to enhance their juniors' individual strength. While fighting for more honor, it would also allow their juniors to have more means to protect themselves. It could be said that as long as there was a rolling tier phenomenon in the younger generation's contracted phase, it meant that they had an extraordinary background. Of course, the Moon Empress did not go into detail about the details, so Lin Yuan did not know much. But come to think of it, the crux of this was undoubtedly related to the level of mental strength. After a fae reached platinum, its intelligence would be greatly enhanced, and its spiritual energy would also increase by several times. As a result, for spirit chi professionals who had yet to reach B rank, contracting a platinum fae would be a huge burden on their spiritual energy. In fact, the spirit chi professionals' spiritual energy would be suppressed by their contracted phase. If this really happened, the spirit chi professionals might have a mental breakdown, which was permanent spiritual damage. However, as a fae with Morbius spirit lock, the Jasmine Lily was spiritually connected to Morbius. Even if it was a rolling tier, it would not have a huge impact on Lin Yuan. At most, Lin Yuan's spiritual energy would fall into a state of fatigue after controlling the platinum/fantasy breed Jasmine Lily. After communicating with Morbius, Lin Yuan decisively chose to let the Jasmine Lily undergo the rolling tier. Therefore, Lin Yuan could control a platinum/fantasy breed fae as a C-rank spirit chi professional. Fortunately, Lin Yuan's efforts and risks were not in vain. After Lin Yuan healed Lu Jie, he could not be bothered to catch his breath. He quickly carried the insect queen, which had turned into a purple flesh cocoon, over and placed it beside Lu Jie. At that moment, the thick liquid that flowed out of the hole on the insect queen's purple flesh cocoon was no longer purplish-gray. Instead, it was faintly black. Under Lin Yuan's observation, the purplish-gray toxin had spread to the insect queen's entire body, causing the insect queen's purple flesh cocoon to look abnormally dim. The insect queen's current situation could be said to be urgent. Lin Yuan was a creation master, so he could clearly sense the insect queen's current state. The insect queen was originally a fairy-like spiritual type source-type life form. At that moment, the purplish-gray toxin had started to corrode and destroy the insect queen's spirit, causing great damage to it. The insect queen was Lu Jie's only contracted fae. If anything happened to the insect queen, even if Lin Yuan allowed Lu Jie to fully recover, Lu Jie would still return to his muddle-headed state before he met Lin Yuan. In the future, Lu Jie would return to the muddle-headed state he was in before they met, and it might even get worse. After all, the insect queen had been in a critical state at that time, and there was always a trace of possibility of recovery. Now, the insect queen was indeed on the verge of death. Lin Yuan scooped out a bowl of silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar from the opening of the jar. Through the hole on the insect queen's body, he slowly poured the bowl of silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar into the insect queen's body. The second chapter. There will be another chapter later, and it will be very late. Everyone can pay attention to rest, and we will continue watching tomorrow morning. Mwah. End of this chapter. Chapter 5:16. As soon as the silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar entered the insect queen's body, Lin Yuan immediately took a spirit chi crystal and crushed it beside the insect queen. For the insect queen to recover from its injuries, it did not need life force but a huge amount of pure spirit chi. After the insect queen absorbed the huge amount of pure spiritual chi, its body would begin to repair itself. As a platinum/fantasy breed source-type life form, the insect queen's recovery ability was extremely strong. Moreover, with the silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar, it was naturally easy to expel the purplish-gray spiritual toxin. However, the next scene made Lin Yuan frown tightly. After the insect queen absorbed the silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar, it did not discharge the purplish-gray spiritual toxin through the broken hole like Lu Jie had done previously. Instead, when Lin Yuan crushed the spirit chi crystal, the insect queen absorbed the dense spirit chi from the spirit chi crystal and recovered. It assimilated and absorbed the purplish-gray spiritual toxin in its body. Before Lin Yuan could think further, the insect queen's purple flesh cocoon suddenly secreted a huge amount of colloidal insect protein. After the colloidal insect protein was secreted, it immediately turned from transparent to milky white. The milky white gelatinous worm protein became harder and harder, completely wrapping the insect queen within it. Lin Yuan quickly used Morbius True Data to check on the insect queen's true data. After a glance, Lin Yuan realized that the insect queen was currently undergoing a mutation. Lin Yuan sighed. The insect queen's mutation was definitely not related to the silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar. The silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar was used to remove impurities and recover damaged roots, but it did not have the ability to mutate source-type life forms. In other words, the insect queen's sudden mutation could only be related to the purplish-gray spiritual toxin. Apart from not being able to fight in sea battles, Lu Jie's insect queen's ability combination had formed a near-perfect combat system for land battles. Therefore, the insect queen's sudden mutation might not be a good thing. The mutated insect queen might very likely change Lu Jie's usual combat style. Lu Jie was a spirit chi professional who focused on commanding insect swarms on the battlefield and deploying insect swarms' resources to wage war. In terms of combat style, it could be said that he was already set. Lu Jie didn't have many phases like other spirit chi professionals. He only had the insect queen, which was a source-type life form. Therefore, even a slight change in the insect queen would have a huge impact on Lu Jie as a whole. However, Lin Yuan could only rely on his own means to save the insect queen. As for how the insect queen would mutate, Lin Yuan had no way of interfering. Whether it was a blessing or a curse, it all depended on Lu Jie's luck. At that moment, Lin Yuan heard the sound of a mirror shattering. Upon hearing this voice, Lin Yuan strode toward the evolving dimensional rift in the distance. Just as Lin Yuan was dashing toward the dimensional rift, something strange happened. The moonlight in the sky could sense Lin Yuan's aura, so it did not attack Zhou Luo and Lu Jie, who had formed a contract with him. However, under the illumination of the moonlight, the outer shell of the seven-colored ball of light in the dimensional hub was instantly sublimated into nothingness. Without the obstruction of the outer shell, the rainbow light bloomed in the dimensional hub with a hazy rainbow brilliance. Immediately after, Lin Yuan was shocked to find that the dimensional rift, which originally needed more than 10 minutes to complete its evolution to Class 5, was instantly torn open. Another ball of light emitting a hazy rainbow brilliance descended from the torn dimensional rift. Lin Yuan's expression changed drastically. At that moment, he finally confirmed what exactly that rainbow light was. Just as Lu Jie had guessed, the rainbow orb was the legendary sacred source life form. Lin Yuan had never expected that the extreme token that his master, the Moon Empress, had given him would actually be a hindrance at a critical moment. Although the moonlight had mostly suppressed the spatial fluctuations in the dimensional hub, under the illumination of the two sacred source life forms, the dimensional rift continued to tear and expand. However, under the illumination of the rainbow halos from the two sacred source life forms, the dimensional rift continued to tear and expand. Through this rift, Lin Yuan seemed to have peeped into the boundless water world on the other side of the rift. From the hub of this dimensional rift, Lin Yuan also sensed a few powerful auras about to rush out of the water world. At that moment, the water world's boundless seawater was pouring down through the torn rift. At that moment, the moonlight from the bright moon hanging high above the 9 heavens seemed to have found a target and suddenly descended. The moonlight and the vast ocean collided, and the moonlight sublimated the vast ocean that was pouring down in torrents. The moment the moonlight sublimated the ocean, Lin Yuan could feel the energy in the extreme token in his chest rapidly being consumed. At that moment, Lin Yuan finally had a direct understanding of his master's strength. This was because his master's moonlight domain was resisting the entire Class 5 water world dimensional rift. The powerful lifeforms in the Class 5 water world dimensional rift were immediately sublimated. Not even a drop of water could fall on the yellow sand under Lin Yuan's feet. Lin Yuan did not have any time to think and immediately reached into the dimensional hub. He had chosen to stop the dimensional rift's evolution. Zhou Luo and Lu Jie had also risked their lives to send him here. In that case, the only thing he could do now was to puff out his chest and risk his life to seize the opportunity when the moonlight was in the sublimation ocean. Before the extreme token's energy was depleted, he took out the 2 sacred source lifeforms that emitted a rainbow brilliance from the dimensional hub. Even if the moonlight in the sky had suppressed the dimensional energy in the dimensional hub, Lin Yuan's hand would still be able to reach the dimensional hub. However, as soon as Lin Yuan's hand reached into the dimensional hub, his entire hand immediately became a bloody mess. In an instant, Lin Yuan's hand was cut by countless dimensional ripples. Lin Yuan had already expected all of this. However, the numbness derived from the pain of being cut by so many dimensional ripples prevented Lin Yuan from feeling the pain immediately. Immediately after, the intense pain from his hand made him clench his teeth tightly. Lin Yuan's tightly clenched teeth let out creaking sounds as though his teeth were going to be crushed by his clenching. 10 fingers linked to the heart. Moreover, apart from the 10 fingers, there was also the palm, the web between the thumb and index finger, the wrist, the forearm, and the elbow. The dimensional hub's spatial energy was like a viscous swamp. Even if Lin Yuan used all his strength, his hand could only move forward bit by bit due to the huge repulsive force. All of a sudden, Lin Yuan yelled out. Bud of Mountain Jade, heal. Lin Yuan channeled all the remaining spirit qi in the spirit qi imprint into the jasmine lily's body. It was not because Lin Yuan was afraid that he would suffer severe injuries and was in a hurry to heal. Instead, he was afraid that if his bones were shattered by the spatial energy fluctuations, he would not be able to retrieve the 2 sacred source lifeforms from the dimensional hub. If that was the case, all of his previous efforts would be in vain. The yellow sand boiled. The bright moon hung high in the sky. The ocean roared. The moonlight was still the moonlight of a youth, dyed in blood and soaked in radiant light. The youth's hand faintly revealed his bones, but his eyes were still incomparably resolute. He did not stop his hand from reaching for the 2 sacred source lifeforms that emitted a rainbow brilliance. Tips and updates for not being able to draw well with your brush. A new month, seeking monthly votes. Mwah. Sweet dreams, everyone. End of this chapter. Chapter 5:17. Lin Yuan stood there, and his spine, which usually never bent, was slightly bent due to the trembling. Lin Yuan was worried that the energy in the extreme token on his chest would be quickly consumed during the process of resisting the Class 5 dimensional rift. However, he did not expect that the energy in the extreme token would not be the first to be consumed. Instead, it was the spirit qi in his spirit qi imprint. Under Lin Yuan's control, the Bud of Mountain Jade was quickly releasing the heal ability on his injured arms. However, Lin Yuan had underestimated the spirit qi consumption of the Platinum I/Fantasy 3 Jasmine Lily. At the same time, he had also underestimated the severity of the injuries on his hands. The dimensional energy in the dimensional hub was like a sharp blade that bloomed on every inch of Lin Yuan's skin. Even the delicate spot between Lin Yuan's fingers was not spared from being scratched by the blade. Every time the dimensional energy fluctuation occurred, Lin Yuan's brain would receive thousands of intense pain sensations. The dimensional energy fluctuation was happening every second. This made Lin Yuan's head extremely dizzy due to the constant pain, and he was even starting to feel a little numb. What was worse was that Lin Yuan still had to endure the feeling of being hollowed out by the overdraft of spirit qi. When spirit chi professionals' bodies were hollowed out, they often had to grit their teeth and persevere just to stand. Moreover, Lin Yuan still had to endure the bone-scraping pain. The young man's determined expression was gradually covered by the yellow sand that was rising from the ground. As Lin Yuan's contracted elemental source-type life form, the source sand might not have high intelligence, but it could sense Lin Yuan's current state. The rising yellow sand was the source sand using its own method to encourage Lin Yuan. The surging yellow sand was the source sand using its own method to encourage Lin Yuan. The mask that Lin Yuan was wearing, which was transformed from cleverness, rolled off his face. The moment the silver mask rolled off, it turned into a white cat with 3 tails. Genius looked at Lin Yuan, and its blue eyes instantly turned moist. However, Genius did not dare to burrow into Lin Yuan's arms like it usually did. Instead, it jumped onto Lin Yuan's shoulder. Genius knew that if it touched Lin Yuan now, it might be the last straw that crushed Lin Yuan's will. Lin Yuan fell to the ground, wasting all his previous efforts. Due to the sense of powerlessness and the dizzying pain in his mind, he felt that his head was getting heavier and heavier as though he would fall asleep at any moment. However, Lin Yuan's thoughts were abnormally clear at that moment. Holding the world in one's hand, one's body is bright. Lin Yuan was relying on his last breath to get the 2 sacred source lifeforms out of the dimensional hub. However, the injuries on Lin Yuan's hands were too serious. The bud of mountain jade could not receive the supply of spirit chi from Lin Yuan's body, so it could only rely on its own heal ability to heal Lin Yuan's hands. It could no longer keep up with the speed of his injuries. In just a moment, only a thin layer of flesh was left on one of his hands. The original feeling of powerlessness and intense pain from the exhaustion of spiritual energy, coupled with the weakness of the heavy injuries on his hands due to excessive blood loss. Lin Yuan, who was extremely determined, suddenly felt that his hands were only 3 centimeters away from the 2 source-type items in the dimensional hub. It seemed to have become a natural moat. At that moment, Morbius' voice suddenly sounded in his ears. Lin Yuan, do your best. Morbius' voice echoed in Lin Yuan's spiritual spatial zone. Morbius, which was hanging on Lin Yuan's wrist, used Calm Mind on Lin Yuan. Relying on Calm Mind and this brief comfort, Lin Yuan's eyebrows suddenly emitted a wisp of stunning sharpness. Lin Yuan used all his strength to leap forward with all his might. He grabbed the 2 balls of 7-colored light with each hand, 1 in each hand. Then, using the force of the fall, Lin Yuan swept his elbow. The remaining 9 source-type items at the bottom of the dimensional hub were also swept out of the dimensional hub. Then, Lin Yuan fell straight on the yellow sand. However, the boiling quicksand was like a soft bed that carefully and gently lifted Lin Yuan, who had fallen. A deep sense of fatigue appeared between Lin Yuan's eyebrows, but he did not have time to hide that wisp of stunning sharpness. He had experienced a heart-wrenching life-and-death challenge. The sharpness between his eyebrows that was about to fade seemed to be wider than his shoulders at this moment. In the bud of mountain jade, the healing light beam continued to hit Lin Yuan's 2 injured arms. Lin Yuan immediately felt an itchy pain in his arms. Lin Yuan endured it silently. This feeling was formed precisely because new flesh was constantly growing. This meant that his injured arms were constantly recovering. Lin Yuan took a few deep breaths, but before he could enjoy true peace, he suddenly felt a pain that was completely different from his body. All of a sudden, Lin Yuan felt a pain that was completely different from his body. Furthermore, the 2 soft rainbow-colored glows in his palms had disappeared. Immediately after, Lin Yuan recovered from the intense pain. This pain was the same as when he had cleansed the impurities in his soul in the Radiant Moon Palace. After cleansing the impurities in his soul, Lin Yuan no longer had the chance to see the 2 humanoid shadows in the depths of his soul. However, Lin Yuan's consciousness returned to the depths of his soul. To Lin Yuan's horror, the 2 7-colored light balls were all gathered in one of the 2 humanoid shadows in the depths of his soul. These 2 7-colored light balls were releasing 7-colored brilliance to their heart's content. The 2 7-colored lights kept colliding inside the humanoid shadow, as though they were fighting for territory. Lin Yuan remembered what his master, the Moon Empress, had told him when she had mentioned sacred source life forms. When contracting a sacred source life form, one must have the help of many spiritual ingredients that could nourish the soul to succeed. When contracting a sacred source life form, one must be at least 20 years old. Otherwise, one's soul might not be strong enough and be crushed by the sacred source life form's energy. From the Moon Empress tone, Lin Yuan understood how precious sacred source life forms were. At the same time, forming a contract with one was extremely risky. Lin Yuan did not know whether he should say that he was lucky or unlucky. Lin Yuan did not expect that the way to contract sacred source life forms was through a blood contract. Due to the injuries on his hands, when he had grabbed the two sacred source life forms, he had formed a contract with them. It was such a blessing that Lin Yuan could not lose weight no matter what he did. Ordinary people would need spiritual ingredients that could nourish the soul to form a contract with a sacred source life form. However, he had formed a contract with two sacred source life forms without any spiritual ingredients. This was a disaster. Lin Yuan felt as though the soul shadow in the depths of his soul was being crushed by the two sacred source life forms' energy. The pain of his soul shattering was on a completely different level compared to the physical injuries he had suffered earlier. Just as the humanoid shadow in the depths of Lin Yuan's soul was on the verge of shattering, Lin Yuan's consciousness sank into darkness. At that moment, Morbius in Lin Yuan's hand lit up again. This time, however, it was not the white light that it had when it used Calm Mind. Instead, it was the reddish-gold metallic light of Morbius' body. The two sacred source life forms in the depths of Lin Yuan's soul shadow were still fighting, neither giving way. They were like two lions fighting for territory, both wanting to claim Lin Yuan's soul as their own to complete the contract. However, when Morbius lit up with a reddish-gold light, the two sacred source life forms that were radiating with rainbow light stopped in their tracks. It was as though they had sensed something abnormally terrifying, and they seemed to be abnormally fearful. The first update, the beginning of the month, rolling on the ground for monthly votes. There will be more updates later. End of this chapter. Chapter 518. The last two sacred source life forms found that they could not form a contract with Lin Yuan's soul projection no matter what. However, they also seemed to be afraid of Morbius' reddish gold luster. In the end, the two sacred source life forms clung tightly together as if they were unwilling to do so. The moment the two sacred source life forms stuck together, every part of Lin Yuan's soul projection was filled with a rainbow luster. The two rainbow-colored lusters flickered, but they did not continue to deal the final blow to Lin Yuan's soul projection, which was on the verge of shattering. Instead, the two rainbow-colored lights merged into one and fused into Lin Yuan's shattered soul projection. Finally, when the rainbow luster was about to dissipate, the sacred source life form's original appearance was faintly revealed. After Morbius lit up with the reddish gold luster, the entire Morbius bracelet seemed to have lost its luster. Morbius' voice sounded in Lin Yuan's mind, a little weak. Lin Yuan, I'm going to sleep for a period of time. After a pause, Morbius continued, this time, I'm going to sleep for a longer period of time. I slept much longer than the last time. Perhaps I really won't be able to wake up before advancing to a fantasy breed. However, with the new sacred source life form formed from the two sacred source life forms, I don't have to worry about sleeping. Morbius' words were very slow, as if it was both reluctant and explaining. In the end, Morbius fell completely silent. However, after Lin Yuan's consciousness fell into darkness, he did not know anything. However, within Lin Yuan's soul projection, the sacred source life form that had just peeled off the rainbow luster and revealed its original form seemed to have received praise from a superior and seemed to be somewhat happy. The dimensional hub that had been prevented from evolving was currently experiencing violent turbulence. Without the support of source-type items, the dimensional hub's entire space became somewhat illusory as if it was faintly dissipating. The unconscious Lin Yuan, Lu Jia, and Zhou Luo were like garbage. Just as the dimensional hub was about to dissipate, they were spat out. The black-robed woman with a veil covering her face looked at the sealed dimensional rift's entrance, and her expression became increasingly solemn. However, the black-robed woman with the veil on her face suddenly discovered that the woman in the moon-colored robe beside her had a calm expression on her face. However, the coldness and madness in his aura became more and more obvious. The black-robed woman, whose face was covered by a black veil, thought, not good. It was as though the moon-robed woman's emotions were more difficult to deal with than the evolving dimensional rift. Moon Empress, you came here in advance. Do you know what faction is behind this dimensional rift? Upon hearing that, the Moon Empress stared at the dimensional rift's entrance without blinking. She didn't even look at the black-robed woman with a veil on her face. However, there was an indescribable chill in his words. Chief Guard Yi, this consort has been living in seclusion in Leaning Moon Mountain for 10 years. Yet you're asking this Empress which faction did this? Could it be that your brain isn't working well? The chief guard of the spirit guards, Night Leaning Moon, immediately knew that she had said the wrong thing. How could he have forgotten the Moon Empress' true temper? The Moon Empress was a self-destructing truck. Even though the Moon Empress seemed calm, that was only on the surface. The Moon Empress' killing intent was so strong that even if her disciple did not return alive, it would not diminish even if 10 continents sank to the bottom of the sea. After the Moon Empress finished speaking, she realized that she did not receive the response she should have, and her brows immediately furrowed. However, just like before, she didn't turn to look at Night Leaning Moon. Instead, she said, Night Leaning Moon, as the chief guard of the spirit guards, you didn't even realize that Indigo Azure City had left. At this point, the Moon Empress' voice suddenly choked. Night Leaning Moon stood in place and felt that the scene in front of her was extremely familiar. 20 years ago, when she and the Moon Empress were both Radiance envoys, it seemed that the Moon Empress was in front while she and the other 3 bastards stood behind. She and the other 3 bastards were always reprimanded like elementary school students who had done something wrong. 20 years later, the past repeated itself, except that she now had 3 bastards by her side. The Moon Empress had said that she was here to hold down the fort, but it was better to say that she was here to vent her anger and be reprimanded. What kind of human suffering was this? However, when she heard the Moon Empress' voice suddenly choked, Night Leaning Moon, who was very familiar with the Moon Empress, suddenly raised her head. She realized that the Moon Empress' eyes were suddenly dyed with a faint red color, but Night Leaning Moon knew that this red color definitely had nothing to do with killing intent. This was because the Moon Empress' killing intent would only appear in her aura and not on her face. On normal days, it was considered a rare thing for the Moon Empress to have an expression on her face. But now, the red color in the Moon Empress' eyes reminded Night Leaning Moon of what the Moon Empress had said while looking at her hand during the Imperial Court Council. I'm different from before. My heart is warm now. What did that mean? Night Leaning Moon took 2 steps toward the Moon Empress, but she still didn't know how to comfort her. At that moment, the Moon Empress suddenly realized that the dimensional rift entrance's restriction had disappeared. The sudden disappearance of the dimensional rift's restriction stunned the Moon Empress, who would not change her expression even if a group of mountains collapsed in front of her. Immediately afterward, the dimensional rift entrance that had suddenly removed the restriction pulled out a group of objects that seemed to have drunk black tea like diarrhea. After pulling out these objects, the dimensional rift entrance dissipated. The Moon Empress immediately saw Lin Yuan lying on the ground, covered in blood, without any signs of life. In a flash, the Moon Empress arrived at Lin Yuan's side. When she saw Lin Yuan's hands, her face was immediately filled with heartache and worry. A ray of moonlight flowed out of the Moon Empress' fingers. While sensing Lin Yuan's condition, the Moon Empress' expression changed again and again. However, after the complete examination, the Moon Empress suddenly revealed a smile on her face. This smile suddenly blossomed like a flower. After this smile, the Moon Empress seemed to have let go of all her worries and sighed. It's good that you're back, it's good that you're back. Then, the Moon Empress turned her head and looked at the pitiful rabbit that was squatting beside her leg. The Moon Empress hugged the pitiful rabbit and said, Cece, give me your radish. When the little rabbit heard that the Moon Empress wanted its radish, it carefully handed it over. At the same time, it extended its long ears and pointed at a piece of radish skin on the radish. At the same time, it extended its long ears and pointed at a piece of radish skin on the radish. It seemed to have made a great decision but was still somewhat reluctant. After the Moon Empress took the radish, she went to Lin Yuan's side and exerted force. There was a cracking sound as the radish was directly broken from the waist. When the little rabbit in the Moon Empress embrace heard this crisp sound, its eyes immediately turned sluggish. It was as though it had become the cry of a world-famous painting. Second chapter, begging for monthly votes. Woo woo woo, woo woo woo. End of this chapter. Chapter 5:19. After the Moon Empress broke the radish, she handed it to the suddenly lifeless rabbit in her arms. Then, she placed the rabbit on the ground. The Moon Empress was at Lin Yuan's side and gently placed the half of the radish beside Lin Yuan's mouth before she started to circulate her spirit qi. With the help of the Moon Empress spirit qi, the radish turned into liquid and flowed into Lin Yuan's stomach. After absorbing the energy from the radish, Lin Yuan's body immediately changed. A carrot-colored energy flame rose from Lin Yuan's body. Lin Yuan's body and soul had long been broken, and his spirit had fallen into a deep sleep. However, after the radish was digested, the broken human figure in the depths of Lin Yuan's soul and his arms, which had exposed white bones, were rapidly recovering. After this half of the radish entered Lin Yuan's body, it only took a blink of an eye for his body to return to normal. However, Lin Yuan's soul and spirit were still in a deep sleep. It was like a person who had stayed up for 3 days and 3 nights and needed a long sleep to replenish their spirit. Although Lin Yuan's body had completely recovered, the broken moon-white spirit qi clothes and the blood on them reminded Lin Yuan of how tragic everything he had experienced in the dimensional rift. The little rabbit also came back to her senses. Her lively eyes looked at Lin Yuan and seemed to heave a sigh of relief when she saw that Lin Yuan was fine. However, when she lowered her head and saw that there was only half a radish left in her hand, her ears drooped to the ground. The little rabbit rubbed the radish with heartache. Suddenly, the Moon Empress had broken off the radish and turned it into a whole radish. However, the newly grown radish looked one size smaller than before. The little rabbit subconsciously wanted to continue nibbling on the radish, but after seeing the smaller radish, she could not bear to eat it. Instead, she hid the radish behind her butt. Night Leaning Moon's eyes were on the other 2 people who had been spat out by the dimensional rift. After sizing up Zhou Luo and Lu Jia, Night Leaning Moon shifted her gaze to Lu Jia. If Lu Jia was just a Radiance 100 sequence member, as the chief guard of the spirit guards, Night Leaning Moon would not have such a deep impression of him. However, Night Leaning Moon was able to recognize Lu Jia with just a glance. Lu Jia was actually coming out of the evolving dimensional rift. Night Leaning Moon couldn't help but recall the time when Lu Jia had single-handedly blocked the swarm of insects outside of Cold Frost City, delaying the spirit guards for a full half an hour. Night Leaning Moon walked to Lu Jia's side and extended her hand to check his condition. She discovered that Lu Jia's current condition was abnormally good. The life energy within Lu Jia's body was in a state of excess. From time to time, Lu Jia's body would overflow with life energy. This was obviously the result of an overdose of treatment. However, when Night Leaning Moon looked at the insect queen beside Lu Jia, her eyebrows immediately twitched. She held the cocooned insect queen in her hand and muttered to herself. This insect queen actually absorbed the blade queen bee's life poison. What good fortune! However, the blade queen bee's venom in the insect queen's body is too little. It's not enough for the insect queen to mutate completely. Since that's the case, why don't I give you some good fortune? Just as Night Leaning Moon finished speaking, she was interrupted by the Moon Empress. Night Leaning Moon, this Empress has underestimated you. How can someone as stupid as you become a mid-class Class 4 creation master in 10 years? When Night Leaning Moon heard this, the corner of her mouth couldn't help but twitch twice behind the black gauze. How am I stupid? Back then, if I didn't have any talent as a creation master and was so diligent, I would at least be a pinnacle Class 4 creation master. I might even reach the standard of a Class 5 creation master. Even if my ability as a creation master is not at Class 5, I am still very strong. Why don't I see you praising me? When I was with you as a Radiance envoy, I was always the team's main C position. Night Leaning Moon suddenly recalled that when she was with the Moon Empress as a Radiance envoy, she seemed to be despised every day. Night Leaning Moon's mouth couldn't help but twitch even more. At that moment, Night Leaning Moon heard the Moon Empress speak again. The dimensional rift in this evolution is also at least tier 5. It might even be higher. Now that the evolving dimensional rift has been stopped by the three of them, giving him a Blade Queen Bee isn't considered a good fortune. Night Leaning Moon looked at Lu Jia, who was lying on the ground, and pondered for a moment. She then said, I have not accepted a disciple for so many years. When he wakes up, if he is willing to acknowledge me as his master, I am willing to teach him with all my heart. The Moon Empress couldn't help but look a little surprised. Being accepted as a disciple by Night Leaning Moon, the chief guard of the spirit guards, was really considered a great fortune. Then the Moon Empress recalled that Lu Jia was her disciple, Lin Yuan's retainer knight. Wasn't Night Leaning Moon's wholehearted nurturing of Lu Jia the same as working for her disciple? That was really not bad. After Night Leaning Moon finished speaking, she looked at Zhou Luo and Lin Yuan, who was beside the Moon Empress, and then looked at the Moon Empress. Obviously, she had something to say. When the Moon Empress saw Night Leaning Moon's gaze, she said, some people are destined to walk towards the mountains and seas. Some people are destined to walk towards the mountains and seas. Such people don't care about momentary glory. 3 years later will be the day to decide the 5 new Radiance envoys. Speaking of this, a trace of reminiscence flashed in the Moon Empress' eyes. Then, the Moon Empress said softly, the enemy is in the dark while we are in the light. The enemy is in the dark while we are in the light. You can handle this matter as you see fit. After saying that, the Moon Empress bent down and carried Lin Yuan in her arms before walking out of the curtain formed by moonlight. After exiting the curtain formed by moonlight, the Moon Empress said to Mystic Moon, who was guarding outside. Mystic Moon, bring the 2 people inside to the Radiant Moon Palace and, after saying that, the Moon Empress paused and said again, bring them back to Lin Yuan's mansion. Bring him back to Lin Yuan's manor and let him recuperate. Mystic Moon had already seen Lin Yuan in the Moon Empress' arms when she came out. Although Lin Yuan looked like he was in a state of deep sleep, just by looking at the Moon Empress' emotions, he knew that Lin Yuan was not in any danger. Furthermore, before the Moon Empress came out, Lin Yuan had been sleeping. After the layer of blood on the bright moon in the sky became extremely rich, it had already disappeared. The mother of Bloodbath, Endless Summer, and Listen also saw Lin Yuan in the Moon Empress' arms. The moment they saw Lin Yuan, the trio's tense heartstrings could finally relax a little. The Moon Empress ignored the mother of Bloodbath, Endless Summer, and Listen. He carried Lin Yuan and walked outside. When he walked outside, the Moon Empress's body immediately emitted dense moonlight, covering Lin Yuan's figure. The Moon Empress looked at Lin Yuan in her arms and said softly, let's go home with Master. The moment the Moon Empress walked out, all the experts guarding outside lowered their heads. Even when they looked at the ground, their expressions were extremely respectful. However, just as the experts lowered their heads, they suddenly felt that the light shining on them was no longer cold. Instead, it had become warm. After a long while, the 2 guard envoys standing in front slowly raised their heads. Only then did he realize that the bright moon in the sky that reigned above everything had disappeared. The rising sun hung high in the sky, emitting warm light. The first update, asking for monthly votes, asking for a wave of subscriptions. End of chapter. Chapter 520. Lin Yuan fell into a deep sleep, but he seemed to have had a very, very long dream. In the dream, Lin Yuan was like a bystander watching a world. This world was originally full of vitality, and unknown flowers bloomed in the wilderness. However, at that moment, 2 rainbows emitting 7-colored lights suddenly appeared in the sky above the world. The 2 rainbows stood as equals, not giving way to each other as they dyed the blue sky. The rainbow light seemed gentle, but it was unusually rebellious. The rainbow light sprinkled over the earth, and the unknown flowers that bloomed on the earth cracked and withered under the rainbow light. At that moment, a figure suddenly descended from one of the rainbows. This figure was a young girl with her eyes closed, and her body was like a phantom. The young girl wore a crown on her forehead and a long dress, with a kind of innate nobility. The moment the young girl descended from the rainbow, it was as if she had vaguely invaded the entire world and was about to become the master of the world. At that moment, the other rainbow descended with a sword without a scabbard. The sword's hilt was gorgeous and carved with all kinds of alien beast totems. The slender sword body contained a touch of sharpness that could tear through everything. The sharp sword wrapped in sharpness and attacked the young girl wearing the crown. The two were in a tight stalemate. It was precisely this stalemate that made the rainbow light even more unscrupulous, causing the already disintegrating world to be about to completely collapse. Just as the world was about to collapse, the entire world was suddenly covered by a touch of reddish-gold brilliance. This touch of reddish-gold brilliance gave Lin Yuan, who was watching from the side, an unusually familiar and warm feeling. When this touch of reddish-gold brilliance descended, the young girl and the sharp sword that had been in a stalemate suddenly seemed to become unusually fearful. This touch of reddish-gold brilliance, which Lin Yuan was familiar with and warm, was like a cow that did not drink water, oppressing the young girl wearing the crown and the sharp sword without a scabbard. In the end, the young girl wearing the crown reluctantly walked toward the sharp sword without a scabbard. The young girl opened her arms and embraced the sharp sword without a scabbard. At this moment, the two of them combined into one, forming a new whole from the original combination of two single entities. In midair of the world that was about to collapse, the young girl wearing the crown curled up her legs, and her skirt fluttered. She tightly hugged the sword with an unusually gorgeous hilt. The gorgeous patterns on the sword seemed to have become the young girl's authority. With the power of the heavenly Tao on him, he wanted to reach the heavens. At this moment, the two rainbows in the sky that were originally not giving way to each other also merged into one. The originally unruly rainbow light also became beautiful and gentle, and the rainbow light once again shone upon the world. This time, the rainbow light did not destroy the world that was on the verge of shattering. Instead, it blended perfectly into the world. As for the girl holding the sharp sword, after the rainbow light completely fused with the world, she submitted to the shattered world and became a part of it. Or rather, he was like a guardian, protecting this world that was on the verge of shattering. He watched everything that happened in this world like a bystander. At that moment, Lin Yuan seemed to suddenly smell the aroma of radishes. Then, in the world that was on the verge of shattering, the cracked and dry land was covered with endless radishes. The radishes grew, blossomed, bore seeds, grew old, and rotted. Batch after batch of radishes continued to provide energy to this world that was on the verge of collapse. Slowly, the broken soil became fertile again, and unknown wildflowers bloomed all over the land. Meanwhile, the hero of this world, Radish, who had cured this world that was on the verge of shattering, had disappeared. However, this world was still filled with the aroma of carrots. Lin Yuan witnessed this strange scene in his dream. Moon Empress, you don't have to beat so many jujubes, right? Even if you calculate that young lord should wake up in a while, young lord can't eat so many jujubes. Cold Moon watched as the Moon Empress kept taking out the pits of the diamond smooth crystal thread jujubes from the date garden in the inner palace. Then, she used a pestle made of completely jade textured osmanthus wood to continuously smash the diamond smooth crystal thread jujubes. Cold Moon felt that it was simply too exaggerated. The Moon Empress had probably plucked all the jujubes from the only 3 diamond smooth crystal thread jujubes in the Leaning Moon Mountain's date garden. Cold Moon knew that the Moon Empress was exceptionally fond of Lin Yuan. But now, it seemed that she was a little better than before. It was reasonable to say that after the lotus phase in the lotus pond reached suzerain, the multicolored light that they spewed could completely cover the entire inner palace. But now, it only covered a 5-meter range of the lotus pond. God knew how many times the lotus roots of the suzerain lotus phase had been cut by the Moon Empress. The Moon Empress was a little anxious as she peeled the jujubes in her hand. When she heard that Cold Moon still had time to talk, she quickly said, "Cold Moon, come and help this Empress grind these jujubes. Cold Moon, come and help me grind these dates." My disciple's hands were seriously injured when he came out of the dimensional rift. How can he not take nourishment? This empress intends to make these jujubes into jujube powder. Even if this empress disciple drinks it every day, it should be enough for 3 months. Cold Moon couldn't help but hold her forehead. How long had it been since she left the Radiant Moon Palace? Why did the Moon Empress seem to have changed? If young Lord drank the diamond smooth crystal thread jujube powder every day, in less than a week, he would probably become a human-shaped blood sprinkler. He would be able to use his nosebleed to water the flowers and plants on the leaning Moon Mountain. Moreover, didn't the Moon Empress already let young Lord eat half of the Rabbit Emperor's sacred source life form? Even if young Lord is a smooth crystal thread jujube, after being made into jujube cheese and jujube powder, he should be in the healthiest state. At this point, Jianghu stole a glance at the small flower pot containing the crystal soil. The listless Lord Rabbit Emperor was currently using his ears to plant the carrots in the crystal sand. Cold Moon felt that the Moon Empress' love for the young lord was simply terrifying. However, when she thought about her gains in Redbud City after leaving the Radiant Moon Palace, she couldn't help but smile faintly. When the Moon Empress saw Jianghu smile, she stopped what she was doing and looked at Jianghu suspiciously. 10 years have passed. Is there someone chasing you again? The Moon Empress suddenly recalled that Marquis Jingshi had openly expressed his love for Jianghu. Both of his legs were broken by Jianghu, and he sat in a wheelchair for 10 years without daring to get up. Although Marquis Jingshi's way of expressing his love was a little overboard, Jianghu's actions were not befitting of a woman. When Cold Moon heard the Moon Empress' words, she was stunned. Immediately after, Cold Moon knew that the Moon Empress had misunderstood her. Jianghu glanced at the room in the back of the palace and said, "Moon Empress, young lord's younger sister, Chu Ci, is now my disciple." Yesterday's second update. There's a change in Button's work. Something happened, and we encountered some problems. Boo-hoo. There are 2 updates today. They are, I can't draw you with a brush, and unparalleled in the world. I'll make up for it tomorrow. Hee hee, love you guys. End of this chapter. Chapter 521. Upon hearing that, the Moon Empress was stunned, but she didn't look particularly surprised. During the week that Lin Yuan had been asleep, the Moon Empress had long seen how close Cold Moon was to Chu Ci. It was just that the Moon Empress didn't expect that Cold Moon, who had always been cold, would actually take the initiative to accept a disciple. With just this thought, the Moon Empress was certain that Cold Moon had the intention of accepting a disciple. She must have seen the Moon Empress accept Lin Yuan as her disciple and learn from her. Since Jianghu was learning from her, the Moon Empress felt that she had to teach Jianghu how to be a good master. From the Moon Empress' point of view, a master that didn't pamper his disciple wasn't a good master. Jianghu, smile in front of Chu Ci more often in the future. It's not good to be too serious. At this point, the Moon Empress muttered to herself for a moment before changing the topic. You've just taken Chu Ci as your disciple. Why don't you find a path protector for her? That way, her safety can be guaranteed. When the Moon Empress said this, she looked very serious. After all, due to Lin Yuan's incident, the Moon Empress had been frightened for a while. Upon hearing the Moon Empress' words, Jianghu hurriedly replied. Moon Empress, I see that Chu Ci is getting along well with my iced Zhanghuang dragon. I plan to let the iced Zhanghuang dragon become Chu Ci's path protector. When the Moon Empress heard that, she felt that Cold Moon could finish her apprenticeship. All of a sudden, the Moon Empress looked at the little rabbit, who was lying on the table and looking pitifully at the carrot growing in the soil. The little rabbit sensed someone's gaze on her and immediately pricked up her ears in alarm. Seeing that the Moon Empress was looking at her, the little rabbit quickly turned around and stood up to block the flower pot that she had planted her carrots in. The Moon Empress helplessly shifted her gaze. This rabbit had practically fallen into the radish's eyes. At this moment, a clear voice came from the entrance of the rear hall. Moon Empress, His Highness Path Protector, the Mother of Bloodbath, requests an audience. Upon hearing that, the Moon Empress turned her head and glanced at the room in the inner palace. "Let her in." After speaking, the Moon Empress placed a smooth crystal silk jujube that had just been pitted on the table. Cold Moon keenly noticed that the Moon Empress' expression had sunk. Then, Tsang saw a red-haired, red-eyed woman dressed in red leather armor walk in from the entrance of the rear hall. When she saw the red-haired, red-eyed woman, Tsang Yu's entire body emitted a terrifying pressure. Under Tsang Yu's guidance, this terrifying pressure did not affect even the grass and trees in the rear hall. However, when this pressure fell on the Mother of Bloodbath, it felt as if it was trapped in a glacier. The Mother of Bloodbath gritted its teeth and walked toward the Moon Empress step by step, withstanding the pressure. At this moment, Tsang Yu's cold voice sounded. "You're at the middle stage of Myth 2. You've improved quite a lot since the last time I saw you, but your wariness is too weak." The Mother of Bloodbath had been very worried for the past few days, even though it knew that Lin Yuan should be fine. However, the Mother of Bloodbath still did not know what was going on with Lin Yuan and felt uneasy. Compared to the Moon Empress, the Mother of Bloodbath might not necessarily be the most worried when Lin Yuan was suddenly swallowed into the dimensional entrance that was undergoing evolution. However, as Lin Yuan's path protector, the Mother of Bloodbath undoubtedly blamed itself the most. After seeing that Lu Jia and Zhou Luo were fine in the manor, the Mother of Bloodbath transformed into a fist-sized spider like before and landed on the roof beam. It just looked in the direction of the leaning Moon Mountain. Even after Lu Jia woke up and cooked, the Mother of Bloodbath did not eat a single bite. The Mother of Bloodbath looked at the Moon Empress, who had once saved it, and felt increasingly ashamed. Just as Chu Xianyue had said, it had not been by Lin Yuan's side to protect his safety. Not only had it let down Lin Yuan's trust, but it had also let down the Moon Empress' trust. Even though the Mother of Bloodbath was standing in front of the Moon Empress, it did not know how to speak. However, the Mother of Bloodbath only remained silent for 2 seconds before breaking the silence and asking softly. "Moon Empress, how is Lin Yuan now?" The Moon Empress was originally angry, but after seeing the Mother of Bloodbath's expression, she sighed and said, "Lin Yuan is no longer in any danger. Lin Yuan is no longer in any danger. He just needs to wake up to recover completely." Based on the Moon Empress' previous temper, the Mother of Bloodbath would have sublimated into nothingness under the moonlight when the Moon Empress arrived. It could be said that the Mother of Bloodbath had not protected Lin Yuan because it had completely lost its vigilance. Otherwise, given the Mother of Bloodbath's Myth 2 strength, it would not have let Lin Yuan be sucked into the dimensional rift that had suddenly opened. However, the Moon Empress now knew that she could not do anything to the Mother of Bloodbath. When the Moon Empress had helped Lin Yuan choose his path protector, she had helped him establish a relationship. It was not like giving Lin Yuan an item like the Extreme Token. The Extreme Token had been used, and the Moon Empress could recharge it and seal it with another Moonlight domain. Even if a source-type item like the Extreme Token was damaged, the Moon Empress could spend some effort to find a replacement. Lin Yuan was the Moon Empress' disciple, so she naturally understood his temperament. Lin Yuan and the Mother of Bloodbath already had a deep relationship due to the bond of being a path protector. Thus, the Moon Empress, who had never sighed even in the face of difficult problems, sighed for the first time when facing the Mother of Bloodbath. The Moon Empress waved her hand, and a brown stream of light flew toward the Mother of Bloodbath. The Mother of Bloodbath hurriedly grabbed the flying brown stream of light and found that it was an ancient wooden token with a crescent moon engraved in the center. The surface of the wooden token faintly carried a moonlight-like halo, making the crescent moon engraved on it look a little hazy. The Mother of Bloodbath held the flying wooden token in puzzlement. At that moment, the Mother of Bloodbath heard the Moon Empress say, "I chose you to be Lin Yuan's path protector because your exclusive skills and abilities can allow you to quickly improve your strength. That's why I valued you." Upon hearing the Moon Empress' words, the Mother of Bloodbath hurriedly replied, "I have let down the Moon Empress' trust. I have let down the Moon Empress' trust." The Mother of Bloodbath's words were very calm and at the same time, indescribable determination. It was as though after experiencing a mistake, the mistake itself had been engraved in its life. The Moon Empress looked straight at the Mother of Bloodbath and said in a cold voice, "You have nothing to disappoint me. You have nothing to disappoint me. I only hope that you won't betray Lin Yuan's trust in the future. When you became Lin Yuan's path protector, you have already repaid the favor you owed me. When the mother of Bloodbath heard the Moon Empress' words, it suddenly recalled Lin Yuan's firm eyes in the rain when it had advanced to Myth 2. It also recalled the bits and pieces of time it had spent with Lin Yuan. First update, seeking monthly votes. Recently, I have encountered some matters and have been updating late. End of this chapter. Chapter 522. The mother of Bloodbath bowed to the Moon Empress and replied. Moon Empress, since Lin Yuan is no longer in danger, I will return to the mansion and wait for him to return. After the mother of Bloodbath excused itself, it prepared to place the brown wooden token that the Moon Empress had just thrown over on the table in front of her. At that moment, the mother of Bloodbath heard the Moon Empress speak again. Facing a veteran faction like the Jing family, your strength is no longer of much use, right? A myth breed with Emperor-class combat power will ultimately be unable to become a solid shield in front of a veteran faction. However, if you can reach the Emperor-class combat power of a creation breed, then it will be a different story. This Crescent Moon Radiance token can guarantee that you will survive the creation calamity and not perish during the promotion to a creation breed. The rest is up to you. The mother of Bloodbath's hand that was holding the wooden token paused, and its expression became somewhat complicated. However, the mother of Bloodbath's expression only changed for a moment before returning to its original expression. After the mother of Bloodbath thanked the Moon Empress again, it tightly grasped the Crescent Moon Radiance token in its hand, left the Radiant Moon Palace, and returned to the mansion. After the mother of Bloodbath left, Cold Moon looked at the Moon Empress as though it was the first time she had met her. Cold Moon asked in confusion, if the Moon Empress wants to give the mother of Bloodbath the Crescent Moon Radiance token, you can just give it to her. Why did you put in so much effort? Cold Moon knew that the Moon Empress was never a person of many words. However, when she was giving the Crescent Moon Radiance token to the mother of Bloodbath, she actually mentioned the Jing family, which could not be shown in public. The Moon Empress had only said one more sentence. However, this absolutely subverted Cold Moon's understanding of the Moon Empress. At that moment, the Moon Empress picked up the smooth crystal thread jujube that she had just put down and started to use the completely jade-textured osmanthus wood pestle to continuously smash the jujube. Upon hearing Cold Moon's question, the Moon Empress replied, "This little spider has very high self-esteem." If this Empress did not mention Lin Yuan and the Jing family, even if this Crescent Moon Radiance token could help her survive the creation calamity, she still would not accept it. At that point, the Moon Empress glanced at Cold Moon and said, "Once you become a master, you will realize that martial strength can no longer solve all problems." In this Empress's opinion, being a master is much more profound than being a Class 5 creation master. The corner of Cold Moon's mouth twitched. She did not understand why the Moon Empress said that. Cold Moon Empress. In the future, as long as Chu Xi needed something, he would give her everything he could. If he couldn't, he would create the conditions to give it to her. Empress, at this time, Xian Yu's clear voice sounded again from the back hall's entrance. Empress, Empress, Empress. Cold Moon Empress, Empress, she of Empress, and said, Empress, Master, Moon, Chef God, she, Moon, When the Moon Empress heard this, she frowned. Moon Empress, and longer. Hasn't Chef Supreme, that old thing, been studying the breeding of spirit savory pigs and the postpartum care of sows in fragrant kitchen building for the past few years? Hearing this, Xian Yu's face immediately revealed an indescribable expression. She sorted out her messy thoughts and said, according to Chef Supreme's eldest disciple, it seems that Chef Supreme's youngest disciple has been studying how to make red braised meat tastier ever since he went back. Since Lord Chef Supreme hasn't seen his daughter for a long time, he let his little disciple and daughter stay in Fragrant Kitchen restaurant for half a month. But in this half a month, Chef Supreme's little disciple has been eyeing those spirit savory pigs. Even the 3 old sows responsible for producing piglets were slaughtered by Chef Supreme's little disciple. In my opinion, it's not just these 3 spirit savory pigs this year. It's possible that there will only be 3 in the future. The Moon Empress and Cold Moon remained silent for a long time before speaking in unison. Lin Yuan is the best. Chu Ci is still the best. Mystic Moon blinked her eyes and touched the back of her head. It seemed like he was the only disciple in the Radiant Moon Palace. Why do I suddenly feel like I'm being isolated? Lin Yuan was still immersed in this strange dream. After an unknown period of time, Lin Yuan felt as though his thoughts had returned to his body. He could even faintly sense everything around him through the weak spiritual energy in his mind. For example, the soft bed under him, Morbius on his wrist, and the flowing cloud beeswax pendant on his neck. Although Lin Yuan could sense everything, he couldn't open his heavy eyelids no matter how hard he tried. However, Lin Yuan could already start to communicate with his phase in his mind. Apart from the sleeping Chimey, Genius, Red Thorn, the Source Sand, and the ethereal jellyfish that had returned to his spiritual spatial zone, they were all communicating with Lin Yuan. Especially when Genius was communicating with Lin Yuan, its childish voice had an abnormal sobbing tone. When Lin Yuan was communicating with Genius, its childish voice had an abnormal sobbing tone. After Lin Yuan comforted it for a while, Genius finally calmed down. However, Lin Yuan realized that no matter how he called out to Morbius, he couldn't get in touch with it. Lin Yuan was very familiar with Morbius' current state. At this moment, Morbius had once again entered into a deep slumber like when he had just contracted Morbius. For some reason, Lin Yuan suddenly thought of the reddish-gold light that had lit up in his dream. At that moment, an ethereal voice suddenly echoed in the depths of Lin Yuan's soul. "My lord." After hearing this voice, Lin Yuan originally wanted to respond, but he fell into a deep sleep again in his increasingly fatigued state. When Lin Yuan woke up again, he found that he could already open his eyes. The moment Lin Yuan opened his eyes, he immediately saw Chu Ci, who was guarding by his bed. Chu Ci had obviously been sitting by the bed for an unknown period of time. Her hair looked a little messy, and her ahogue was also standing up. Moreover, Chu Ci, who had been napping, did not know what she had been dreaming about, as there were obvious tear stains at the corners of her eyes that had not dried up. Lin Yuan subconsciously reached out and wanted to help Chu Ci wipe the corners of her eyes. Just as he reached out, he found that his hands had recovered to their original state. However, his mind could not help but recall the pain of countless blades blooming on his hands at that time. Those who had experienced that feeling once would never want to experience it a second time. Lin Yuan's slight movement of wiping the corners of her eyes woke Chu Ci up. The moment she woke up, Chu Ci did not seem to have recovered from her light dream, and there was an obvious panic on her face. However, when she saw that her brother, Lin Yuan, had woken up again, Chu Ci immediately wore a bright and beautiful smile on her face. It was like a bright and beautiful spring day in April. However, as she smiled, bean-sized teardrops dripped from Chu Ci's eyes and dripped on Lin Yuan's arm, still carrying Chu Ci's warmth. "I'm asking for monthly votes. There will be more in a while. But it will be a little later. If everyone can't wait, then rest early. Moi." End of this chapter. Chapter 523. Upon seeing Chu Ci cry, Lin Yuan's heart immediately tightened. In Lin Yuan's impression, Chu Ci had not cried many times since she was young. No matter how difficult things were, she would always have a smile by his side. However, now that Chu Ci was crying, Lin Yuan immediately felt a little numb. This was because he really did not know how to coax her when she was crying so that she would stop crying. Just as Lin Yuan was racking his brains, Chu Ci immediately threw herself into his arms and said intermittently, "Big brother, don't worry. Brother, don't worry. I'm crying tears of joy. Let me cry for a while." Lin Yuan reached out to hold Chu Ci and gently patted her shoulder. Neither Lin Yuan nor Chu Ci were good at expressing their feelings. Therefore, Lin Yuan's impression of such a display of true feeling seemed to be the first year he had brought Chu Ci to survive. When Chu Ci had almost died from her illness, there had been such a scene, but it had never happened again. As Lin Yuan gently patted Chu Si's shoulder, he sighed softly in his heart. Lin Yuan was very sensitive to Chu Si's emotions. How was this a cry of joy? It was clearly a catharsis of worry after everything was settled. Moreover, Chu Si was calling him Big Brother instead of his own name. Clearly, Chu Si knew the whole story of his injury and seemed to have been worried sick during this period. Lin Yuan thought for a long time before thinking of what to say to comfort Chu Si. He heard Chu Si bury her face on his shoulder and ask softly, "Big Brother, is there anything wrong with your body now?" While speaking, Chu Si had already raised her head from Lin Yuan's shoulder and stretched out her hand to wipe away the glistening tears at the corners of her eyes. After Chu Si wiped away these tears, only a smile was left on her face, and there would no longer be big teardrops falling from the corners of her eyes. After Chu Si wiped away these tears, there was only a smile left on her face, and there would no longer be big teardrops falling from the corners of her eyes. When Lin Yuan heard Chu Si's question, he was about to speak, but he did not know how long his body had slept. His throat was dry and uncomfortable. Before he could say a word, he started coughing. Upon seeing this, Chu Si hurriedly walked to the jade porcelain tea table at the side and poured a cup of spirit tea that had been prepared in the teapot. Lin Yuan took the tea that Chu Si handed over and smiled foolishly. After drinking 2 mouthfuls of tea, Lin Yuan felt that his throat was no longer dry. "My body is very good now. I don't feel uncomfortable at all." When he had been desperately trying to stop the dimensional rift's evolution, the person he had been most worried about was his sister, Chu Si. Lin Yuan did not expect that after he woke up from his slumber, he would be in a daze. The first thing he saw was his little sister, whom he had not seen for many days. Chu Si looked at the sincere expression on Lin Yuan's face, as though there was really nothing uncomfortable about it. Chu Si carefully examined him again and was relieved to see that he was in high spirits. At that moment, Chu Si's expression became a little serious. Chu Si reached out her hand and helped him tidy up the corner of his back. "Lin Yuan, I have something to tell you very seriously." Lin Yuan could not help but laugh when he heard how she addressed him. This change was too fast. He had just said that he was fine, and he had changed the way he addressed him from brother to Lin Yuan. However, since Chu Si's expression was so serious, Lin Yuan immediately became serious as well. He had grown up with her and knew her very well. He knew that she had something very important to say to him at that moment. Lin Yuan leaned against the headboard and said very seriously, "Girl, why have you become so serious all of a sudden? Why have you become so serious all of a sudden? Tell me, I'll listen carefully." Suddenly, Lin Yuan saw a trace of grievance flash in Chu Si's eyes. Then, Chu Si's eyes reddened again. Just as Lin Yuan was flustered again, Chu Si's words stunned him. "Lin Yuan, can you feel my feelings when I heard that you were sucked into the dimensional rift and your life and death were unknown? You can't understand because I have an elder brother, but you don't." This sentence, which sounded like showing off, made Lin Yuan's heart tremble fiercely. Lin Yuan was very good at putting himself in others' shoes. When facing some problems, he would try to stand in others' shoes to consider the problem. When facing some people, even if he could not accept what they did, he could understand as long as it did not violate morality. However, Lin Yuan found that he had always forgotten to put himself in the shoes of the people closest to him. All of a sudden, Lin Yuan's thoughts went back to when he was 8 years old, when it had been raining at night in the Xia region. At that time, Chu Si had a high fever, but he could not take out the money to hire a healer to treat her. In the end, it was a coincidence that Auntie Zhang had brought Uncle Li, who had just suppressed his leg, back and found out about his situation. They had hurriedly found a healer to treat Chu Si, which had allowed her to survive. At that time, the despair of being weak and the belief of relying on each other and the bitter life was about to disappear was deeply engraved in Lin Yuan's mind. Lin Yuan's eyes could not help but redden at once. The corners of Lin Yuan's mouth moved, and he wanted to say something. However, he did not say it in the end. However, in Lin Yuan's heart, he said it out softly. "I have a younger sister, but you don't. So I understand." Chu Xi looked at Lin Yuan and was stunned because she found that his eyes had turned red. Chu Xi immediately became flustered. However, at that moment, Chu Xi had a quick wit and changed the topic. Big brother, I comprehended another willpower rune. After saying that, Chu Xi's spiritual energy shot out a willpower rune with an abnormally heavy feeling. This kind of heaviness was like a solid shield. However, behind this heaviness, there seemed to be an indomitable momentum. However, this aura was hidden behind this heavy feeling, as though only after the heavy feeling was dug out could one see the indomitable aura hidden behind it. Only then could one see the indomitable aura hidden behind it. Lin Yuan did not expect Chu Xi to comprehend another willpower rune in such a short time. However, this willpower rune looked a little special, and Lin Yuan could not figure out what it represented. Lin Yuan could not help but ask. Chu Xi, under what circumstances did you comprehend this willpower rune? Upon hearing that, Chu Xi thought for a moment before answering. I comprehended this willpower rune when I looked at the patterns on the Vajra butterfly's wings. Upon hearing Chu Xi's words, Lin Yuan felt as though he had suffered a blow for the first time. Lin Yuan had always felt that his comprehension of willpower runes was already very amazing, but it was nothing compared to Chu Xi's. After all, Lin Yuan had been staring at genius every day, but he had not comprehended the willpower rune because of that. However, Chu Xi had comprehended this willpower rune from the Vajra butterfly. This willpower rune, which Lin Yuan could not figure out, must be suitable for the Vajra butterfly to evolve into a fantasy breed. In the room, Lin Yuan studied Chu Xi's willpower rune, while Chu Xi answered his questions attentively. It was as though they had completely forgotten that just a minute ago, both of their eyes had turned red. The tea in the porcelain cup was currently emitting steam, giving the room a touch of tea fragrance. A safety buckle hanging at the head of the bed bore witness to the tranquility of time under the steam. Tips and updates for not being able to draw. Thank you for your support, big brother. The previous plot was considered to be over. Hee hee. Lin Yuan's first sacred source life form was about to appear. Looking for monthly votes. Moi. Something happened to Button at work recently, so I updated late. Everyone, please forgive me. I worked hard to write once I got home. End of this chapter. Chapter 524. Lin Yuan looked at Chu Xi's newly comprehended willpower rune and was a little surprised by her rapid growth. In the past 6 months, Lin Yuan had been continuously improving his strength and experiencing metamorphoses again and again. Chu Xi had relied on her talent to not fall behind. Chu Xi already had a fantasy breed obsidian iron wild bull. Now that she had comprehended another willpower rune, it was equivalent to saying that Chu Xi was about to have another fantasy breed Fei. For other spirit chi professionals who had comprehended willpower runes, the most difficult thing to promote a Fei into a fantasy breed was to improve its quality. However, with Lin Yuan around, there was no difficulty at all in promoting the Vajra butterfly's quality to legend. In other words, Chu Xi, who was only 16 years old after the new year, already had 2 fantasy breed Feis. Just thinking about this made Lin Yuan feel abnormally terrified. Chu Xi was only a first-year student in an intermediate spirit chi academy at 16 years old, but she already had 2 fantasy breed Feis. As long as Chu Xi's 2 fantasy breed Feis were promoted to silver, then Chu Xi could even have a place in the advanced spirit chi academy. Moreover, Chu Xi did not only have 2 fantasy breed Feis, but the foundations of the 2 contracted Feis were also very outstanding. Lin Yuan had always hoped that Chu Xi's combat style would not be too rash. However, he had to admit that the fantasy breed obsidian iron wild bull perfectly illustrated what offense was the best defense meant. As for the Vajra butterfly, which was about to become a fantasy breed, it was also an exceptionally outstanding defense-type Fei. At that time, Lin Yuan had picked it out of the many defense-type Feis he had picked out for her. The Vajra butterfly's defensive ability was already one of the best among bronze Feis. However, in Lin Yuan's opinion, the Vajra butterfly's true strength did not lie in its own strength. Instead, it lay in the Vajra butterfly's exceptionally outstanding evolutionary potential. If the Vajra butterfly could evolve into a jadeite butterfly, then Chu Si's defensive ability would definitely undergo a great transformation. The Vajra butterfly's evolution into a jadeite butterfly required it to absorb a large amount of plant phase pollen. After the Vajra butterfly absorbed an excessive amount of plant phase pollen, its aura would slowly mutate through the plant phase wood attribute. During this process, the Vajra butterfly needed the assistance of pure spiritual energy to evolve into a jadeite butterfly. Among them, the decisive factor was the pollen of these plant phase that the Vajra butterfly absorbed. The Vajra butterfly was a metal elemental existence, so it would be hard for it to absorb wood elemental pollen directly. Therefore, the best way for the Vajra butterfly to evolve into the jadeite jade butterfly was to absorb the pollen of metal wood dual attribute plant species phase. When Lin Yuan had helped Chu Si choose the Vajra butterfly, he still had to worry about the metal wood dual element plant Fei. Now, he did not need to worry about the pollen of metal wood type plant phase at all. Moreover, the diamond phase storage box that Zhao Hanzhong had taken care of previously had a few metal wood dual elemental plant phase, the golden peony. The golden petals peony was a kind of ornamental fei that bloomed all year round. The flowers that bloomed were even bigger than the mouth of a bowl and had a rich metallic luster, as though they were stacked with thin metal sheets. As an ornamental fei, the golden petals peony didn't have any special use apart from being able to show off one's status. However, just using it to provide the Vajra butterfly with the dual attributes of metal and wood was enough. It could be said that he now had full confidence in evolving the Vajra butterfly into a jadeite butterfly. Lin Yuan pondered for a moment and asked Chu Si very seriously. "You've been on vacation recently, so you shouldn't need the Vajra butterfly to participate in the battle." Chu Si nodded and said, "There shouldn't be a need for the Vajra butterfly to participate in the duels before school starts. I can take advantage of the holidays to go to the Star Web to watch the duels of the Radiance 100 sequence members." Chu Si's voice was filled with vigor. Ever since Chu Si had been preparing to obtain more Redbud City sequence qualifications, she had set her sights on the Radiance 100 sequence. By observing the battles of the Radiance 100 sequence members, she knew how big the gap between them was. This gap had been spurring Chu Si on, urging her to increase her strength. Lin Yuan did not expect Chu Si to be quite ambitious and set her sights on the Radiance 100 sequence again so quickly. However, the Radiance 100 sequence members were all very sinister, and all of them concealed their true strength tightly. Most of the strength they displayed was the strength they had displayed when they had just been selected. However, Lin Yuan did not intend to tell Chu Si about the Radiance 100 sequence's true strength now. He did not want to dampen Chu Si's enthusiasm. Lin Yuan felt that he still had to encourage Chu Si's ambition. "Then leave your Vajra butterfly with me first. I'll see if I can nurture it into a jadeite butterfly. If you're lucky enough to evolve the Vajra butterfly into a jadeite butterfly at Bronze/Legend, it can undergo another qualitative transformation when you promote it into a fantasy breed." Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, Chu Si circulated her spiritual energy to summon the Vajra butterfly. Chu Si naturally would not refuse Lin Yuan's suggestion and offer of help. Chu Si was no longer the little girl who did not know anything before she had contracted a fei. She now understood very well how difficult it was to enhance a fei's quality and make it mutate. Therefore, she understood how much effort Lin Yuan must have put into her first fei. He must have used all the savings he could use at that time. Although Lin Yuan usually did not like to express his feelings, Chu Si had grown up in the Lin courtyard and knew how gentle he was. The Vajra butterfly was not only a fei that Lin Yuan had enhanced, but it was also the first life form it had seen after hatching from the cocoon, so it naturally remembered Lin Yuan. Especially when it saw Lin Yuan leaning against the headboard, the Vajra butterfly flew to the tip of his nose. The Vajra butterfly flapped its wings and covered half of Lin Yuan's face. However, the scale powder scattered by the butterfly's wings was sucked into Lin Yuan's nose, causing him to sneeze 5 times in a row. After sneezing 5 times, Lin Yuan suddenly felt abnormally comfortable. He stored the Vajra butterfly in his spirit lock spatial zone and prepared to nurture it when he had time. After all, before nurturing the Vajra butterfly, he had to nurture the few golden peonies first. First update, asking for monthly votes and recommendation votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 525. Chu Ci suddenly thought of her obsidian iron wild bull, which had already advanced to silver. However, Chu Ci felt that the obsidian iron wild bull, which had evolved into a silver/fantasy breed, was not easy to use. Yuan, my fantasy breed obsidian iron wild bull has evolved from bronze to silver. Master said that obsidian iron raging bull's silver skill isn't bad, but I don't think it makes much of a difference when I spar with the seniors in combat class. After hearing her words, Lin Yuan immediately keenly captured the two words in her words. That word was master. In this world, master and teacher meant different things. In the Intermediate Spirit Chi Academy, Chu Ci could address everyone who taught her as teacher. However, master referred to a relationship of inheritance, even though a master didn't necessarily only have one disciple. However, a person could only have one master in their lifetime. Lin Yuan was not in a hurry to answer her question. Chu Ci, when did you have a master? Why haven't you mentioned it to me? Although she had grown up and could make her own decisions about taking on a master, Chu Ci was still a child. However, Lin Yuan had never heard Chu Ci mention such a big matter to him before, so he was really a little worried. Lin Yuan's first thought was that Chu Ci was young and inexperienced. Could she have been deceived? Upon hearing that, Chu Ci immediately stuck out her tongue and said with some grievance. My master is Auntie Tsanyue. Auntie Tsanyue said she wanted to take me in as a disciple. I feel like the way she looks at me is similar to how Big Brother looks at me. It feels like I'm at home. I wanted to call you that night, but in the afternoon, I heard that you had been sucked into the evolving dimensional rift. When Lin Yuan heard that it was Tsangyu, he immediately felt relieved. It seemed that Tsanyue and Chu Ci had gotten along very well over the past few months. He had actually taken Chu Ci as his disciple. However, Lin Yuan did not ask about it in detail. Instead, he quickly changed the topic. As she had mentioned the evolving dimensional rift again, Lin Yuan was really afraid that she would cry like she had just now. Lin Yuan said hurriedly. Chu Ci, summon the obsidian iron wild bull. Let me see what's wrong with the silver skill. The fact that Cold Moon could say that it was a good skill proved that the obsidian iron wild bull's silver skill was not weak. However, Chu Ci said that she wouldn't be able to use it in a battle with a senior during combat class. This situation made Lin Yuan immediately think of the problem of skill matching. When some Fays used their abilities, they would need some other conditions. Currently, Chu Ci wasn't strong enough to create such conditions for herself in battle, and her opponent couldn't help her create such conditions either. This was probably why Chu Ci couldn't use the obsidian iron wild bull's silver skill during combat class. Chu Ci immediately raised her hand and summoned the obsidian iron wild bull. He carefully used Morbius True Data to examine the obsidian iron wild bull. Fey name, obsidian iron wild bull, spirit species, horn species/bull species, Fey grade, silver, 5/10, Fey type, metal, Fey quality, fantasy II abilities frowny face iron horn. Attach strengthened metal to the rhinoceros horn and use it to pierce without regard for injuries. Sacrifice, when the contractor is injured, help the contractor share the damage. If the contractor is injured, feed back its vitality to the contractor. Pain buffer, when receiving elemental damage, form a shield to isolate the elemental energy. It will buffer the elemental energy for a period of time on the surface of the body. The damage will only be sustained after the shield is broken. Exclusive skill frowny face pain absorption, when receiving damage, absorb a portion of the damage and turn it into vitality. Annihilation gaze, the obsidian iron wild bull's prideful battle consciousness and battle zeal drive its instinctive footsteps. It instantly transforms all the damage it receives in battle into a spiritual attack to counterattack the opponent. Lin Yuan's hand paused when he saw the obsidian iron wild bull's data, and the spirit tea in his hands spilled onto the blanket covering him. The blanket made of warm silk absorbed the spirit tea and spread out as though Lin Yuan had wet the bed. Lin Yuan's eyes widened as he looked at the obsidian iron wild bull in disbelief. The obsidian iron wild bull had reached silver rank 5. Its quality was no longer Fantasy I, but Fantasy II. It was currently extremely difficult for him to upgrade a fantasy breed phase quality. The fact that Chu Si's obsidian iron wild bull had reached Fantasy II probably had something to do with her master, Cold Moon. Even so, Lin Yuan could not help but sigh again. Chu Si's growth was simply too fast. It could even be said that she could fight Listen with just the obsidian iron wild bull's full power. Since the obsidian iron wild bull was Fantasy II, Listen's Pain Illusory Fox and Three-Tailed Crimson Fox were Fantasy I. Therefore, it was hard to say who would win and who would lose if they really fought. Chu Si had been paying attention to Lin Yuan's expression. When she saw his strange expression after seeing the obsidian iron wild bull, she hurriedly asked, "Lin Yuan, do you also feel that the obsidian iron wild bull's silver abilities aren't very useful?" Lin Yuan quickly shook his head. He was pleasantly surprised by the obsidian iron wild bull's silver ability. To improve Chu Si's overall combat power, the silver ability, Suffering Buffer, was much more useful than the elite ability, Sacrifice. As a defense-type Fey, the obsidian iron wild bull's Sacrifice ability was mainly used to protect Chu Si as a contractor. However, after the Vajra butterfly became a fantasy breed, its shield would be able to protect Chu Si in battle. Therefore, Sacrifice could only be used as Chu Si's trump card. Suffering Buffer was much more flexible. It was equivalent to giving the obsidian iron wild bull a temporary invincibility against elemental attacks. He did not know how long the obsidian iron wild bull's shield could last, but he did not know. However, no matter what, it could greatly enhance the obsidian iron wild bull's defense against elemental attacks. The obsidian iron wild bull was already extremely resistant to physical attacks, and now it had a temporary resistance to magic attacks. This would allow the obsidian iron wild bull to sit firmly in Chu Si's position as a defense-type spirit chi professional's main Fey for a long time to come. For the first time, Lin Yuan felt that the obsidian iron wild bull did not look so reckless or stupid. At that moment, Lin Yuan heard Chu Si sigh. "Lin Yuan, if only I could encounter more Feys that rely on elemental energy attacks on Star Web." When those elemental energies hit the obsidian iron wild bull's body, the obsidian iron wild bull's iron horn is much cooler than before. Upon hearing Chu Si's sigh, Lin Yuan suddenly felt that he had wronged the obsidian iron wild bull. The obsidian iron wild bull was not reckless, but Chu Si's heart was. How reckless was Chu Si's heart? That was why he would think of using a good defensive ability as a damage output ability. At that moment, Lin Yuan thought of the burning sunflower that he had traded from the Indigo Azure Sea Market. Lin Yuan suddenly regained his confidence. No matter how reckless Chu Si's heart was, as long as the burning sunflower was there, the plan to nurture his sister into an iron bucket would not fail. Second update. Seeking recommendation votes and monthly votes. I still owe Unparalleled and Twilight Melodies tips and updates. I'll return them in the next 2 days. Sob, sob, sob. Button has been worrying about work for the past 2 days. End of this chapter. Chapter 526. Lin Yuan felt that the current situation was really a coincidence. The burning sunflower that Lin Yuan had prepared for Chu Si was a source-type life form that would cause a burning effect on all life forms except the contractor. After the burning sunflower was contracted, it would give birth to a burning sunflower flower spirit from its flower bud. Fairy source-type life forms had always been very intelligent. Since the burning sunflower was a fire-type fairy source-type life form, its temper was as abnormally violent as a burning flame. In battle, the burning sunflower would attach itself to a certain target while burning all the targets in the field according to its own preferences. If it attached itself to its own target, the target would have a layer of fire elemental shield and fire elemental immunity. If it attached itself to the enemy would suffer the fire elemental damage amplification effect and be burned continuously by the burning sunflower at close range. Since the burning sunflower was a fairy source-type life form, it could make its body spiritualize according to its abilities. This made the phase attached to it unable to use physical abilities to attack the burning sunflower flower spirit and get rid of its attachment. When the burning sunflower flower spirit attached itself to the enemy or one's own body, it was actually equivalent to a curse or blessing effect. However, the burning sunflower spirit wasn't without weaknesses. It wasn't very useful against fays that possessed the ability to disperse. The burning sunflower flower spirit was more outstanding in combat. However, the main reason Lin Yuan had firmly chosen the burning sunflower for Chu Ci was not because of its damage to the enemy. Instead, it could give Chu Ci fire elemental immunity effect and a layer of shield. When Lin Yuan had first seen the burning sunflower, he had felt that it was especially suitable for the obsidian iron wild bull's exclusive skill, pain absorption. It could also help the obsidian iron wild bull meet the precondition of annihilation gaze when no one was attacking it. In the future, Chu Ci's enemies could not all be spirit chi professionals with offensive abilities. The obsidian iron wild bull's exclusive skill, annihilation gaze, needed to be damaged in battle before it could transform the damage into a spiritual impact to return to the opponent. Once the precondition of the obsidian iron wild bull's exclusive skill, annihilation gaze, was met, even if Chu Ci faced support-type spirit chi professionals who were adept at control, traditional defense-type spirit chi professionals, or even heaven-defying healing-type spirit chi professionals, she would not have to be passive. However, after witnessing the obsidian iron wild bull's silver skill, he was stunned. On the contrary, Lin Yuan felt that burning sunflower was the most suitable for the obsidian iron wild bull's silver ability, suffering buffer. The fairy source-type life form, burning sunflower, hadn't contracted Chu Ci yet, so he didn't know what her skills and exclusive skills were. However, just the burning sunflower's ability alone made Lin Yuan exceptionally satisfied. Lin Yuan could not help but sigh. Many source-type items did not seem strong, but they were different. But as long as he followed the right master, he would be able to bring out his basic abilities to the extreme and carry out a deeper level of reasonable development. Every source-type item was an existence that could not be underestimated. Just like the burning sunflower's indiscriminate burning effect, it would be a burden to most fays. Chu Ci was a defense-type spirit chi professional and was about to possess a fantasy breed Vajra butterfly. The Vajra butterfly's shield and the burning sunflower flower spirit's fire elemental immunity could protect Chu Ci's contracted fays from burning damage. This was also why when spirit chi professionals were choosing fays, apart from hoping to have an outstanding fay, they would also have to choose one. They hoped that their contracted fays could promote each other and form a complete combat system. The addition of the burning sunflower to Chu Ci's combat system was equivalent to directly injecting nuclear power into the obsidian iron wild bull's human-powered bicycle. Lin Yuan only hoped that Chu Ci would have fewer tricks up her sleeve when contracting the burning sunflower. It would be good if the burning sunflower did not have some strange, useless abilities and exclusive skills. Even though Chu Ci had yet to contract the burning sunflower, Lin Yuan felt that his plan to nurture his iron bucket sister was already considered preliminary. In his previous life, Lin Yuan had not been a homebody, but he had always been dragged by his classmates to play LOL. Every time Lin Yuan played any hero, as long as he encountered the Demacia force, he would definitely be defeated. No matter how hard Lin Yuan tried, he could not get rid of the 0-8 situation. Therefore, he had learned from this painful experience. In this life, Lin Yuan had decided to forge Chu Ci into an iron bucket. He had to forge Chu Ci into someone like the Demacia force. The obsidian iron wild bull's exclusive skill, pain absorption, was equivalent to giving Chu Ci a set of frenzy armor. The Vajra butterfly's exclusive skill, counterattack tremor, was equivalent to giving Chu Ci a layer of thorns armor. As long as Chu Ci contracted the burning sunflower, it was equivalent to giving Chu Ci another sun flame cloak. Lin Yuan just wanted to ask, frenzy, thorns, and sun flame. How could Demacia lose? If he wanted to nurture his sister, he had to nurture his sister into dementia. Only such an elder brother could be considered a good elder brother. Chu Ci looked at Lin Yuan, who had been fine at first, and then suddenly froze. Chu Ci hurriedly waved her hand in front of Lin Yuan and found that he still had not reacted. She did not know what he was thinking. Chu Ci looked at Lin Yuan suspiciously and could not help but blink. At that moment, Chu Ci really wanted to post a request for help on the Star Web forum. The name of the post would be, "My big brother is in a daze for no reason. Am I going to have a sister-in-law soon?" Chu Ci cleared her throat and decided to test Lin Yuan. "Big brother, it's New Year's in 2 days. Who are you going to spend the New Year's with?" When Lin Yuan heard Chu Ci's words, his mind was thinking about starting to nurture Dementia's younger sister, 5-0, while he was also thinking about the burning sunflower's other possibilities. Lin Yuan's brain was working at full speed. Lin Yuan hoped that after becoming a fantasy breed, the Vajra butterfly could also have some connection with the fairy source-type life form, the burning sunflower. This way, Chu Ci would form a combat system with the obsidian iron wild bull as the tactical core and the 3-phase as one. As he was thinking about the problem, Lin Yuan subconsciously said, "I'm going to spend it with you, of course." Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, Chu Ci did not have time to react. She saw Lin Yuan immediately cough and turned to look at her with a dumbfounded expression. Chu Ci saw Lin Yuan immediately cough and turned to look at her with a dumbfounded expression. "What's going on? Why is the New Year's in 2 days?" Chu Ci nodded. Lin Yuan remembered that when he had been sucked into the dimensional rift, there were still 10 days before the New Year's. He clearly remembered that it had only taken him half a day to stop the dimensional rift's evolution. In this way, he had been unconscious for more than 7 days. "I've been too busy recently. Sob, sob, sob. I'm done for. Sob, 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 it's too late. I have to be diligent." End of this chapter. Chapter 527. Lin Yuan subconsciously wanted to touch his pocket. However, when he touched his pocket, he realized that the clothes on his body had been changed by someone at some point in time. His original moon-white spirit chi clothes had been changed into a moon-colored home dress that he and his master, the Moon Empress, usually wore. Just as he was looking for his phone, he suddenly remembered that the mother of Bloodbath had taken it before he had been sucked into the dimensional rift. Lin Yuan hurriedly turned his head and looked at Chu Ci. "Chu Ci, lend me your phone, I'll make a call." When Chu Ci saw the worried look on his face, she hurriedly handed over the cell phone. At the same time, he thought, is there really a situation since Lin Yuan is so anxious? Before he lost consciousness, he could be sure that he had healed Lu Jie's injuries, but he could not be sure if Lu Jie's spirit had been affected by the purplish-gray poison. In the 7 days that he had been unconscious, the Insect Queen's mutation should be coming to an end. In addition to Lu Jie, Lin Yuan was also very worried about Zhou Luo. However, Lin Yuan was not worried about Zhou Luo's safety. As Zhou Luo was an oath keeper who had sworn to Lin Yuan with a willpower rune, Lin Yuan could be sure that Zhou Luo was still alive. Lin Yuan took her cell phone and was about to make a call. Then, he remembered that Lu Jie's number wasn't saved in Chu Ci's phone. Lin Yuan did not have the habit of memorizing phone numbers, so he summoned Genius with his spiritual energy. Lin Yuan asked Genius. "Smart, what's Brother Lu's phone number?" Although Genius had evolved into the 1,000 questions beast, it was no longer the same as before. However, as a housekeeping beast, its intelligence did not fall behind at all. Instead, it became stronger. Genius said in a childish voice. As soon as Genius reported Lu Jie's phone number, it immediately pounced into Lin Yuan's arms and hugged his neck tightly with its small claws. In the evolving dimensional rift, Genius had been transformed into a mask by Lin Yuan. It could be said that Genius and Lin Yuan were witnessing everything in the spirit lock spatial zone from the same perspective. Lin Yuan's hands were being eroded by the dimensional wave, revealing his bones. Genius was trembling with fear when it saw this. But at such a time, Genius could only look on helplessly and couldn't do anything. Lin Yuan had already comforted Genius in the spiritual world, but it was still so nervous after being summoned. It could be seen how worried Genius was previously. Lin Yuan stroked Genius' 3 tails and was about to use his hand to scratch Genius' furry neck. Genius raised its head and looked at him seriously. Although Genius still had tears in its eyes, its tone was incomparably serious. Yuan, I want to become stronger. I can help you. When Lin Yuan heard that, he revealed a smile and rubbed Genius's little head. Cleverness has always been able to help me. Knowledge is power. Being smart has always been great. After hearing Lin Yuan's words, Genius used its little claw to gesture in the air. Yuan, Genius is only as powerful as 1 piece of red braised pork now. In the future, Genius will definitely work hard to become as powerful as 100 pieces of red braised pork. After Genius finished speaking, it extended its front paw and waved at Lin Yuan in midair. Lin Yuan quickly pinched Genius' little claw that was waving in the air. He touched the soft pads under Genius' little claw and shook it twice solemnly. Then, he stretched out his finger and hooked Genius' little claw. Then let's make a promise and wait for the day Genius becomes as powerful as 100 pieces of red braised pork. Genius' big blue eyes flickered, and the layer of water in its eyes that had yet to dry was still a little moist. Genius' little face revealed a human-like smile. However, before Genius could say anything, Chu Ci had already carried it away. Chu Ci carried Genius in her arms and started to stroke its fur skillfully. Chu Ci's actions immediately made Genius purr in comfort. Little Genius, did you miss me? After speaking, Chu Ci took out a few pieces of meat from the face storage box that Lin Yuan had custom-made for her. She tore the fragrant meat into small pieces and brought them to Genius' mouth. Lin Yuan had been unconscious for such a long time, and Genius had no appetite to eat. Over the past 7 days, most of the rattan loofah in the Spirit Lock spatial zone had already ripened and fallen to the ground. As Genius had been worried, Lin Yuan didn't feel hungry. But now, when Genius smelled the jerky in Chu Ci's hand, its stomach immediately growled. However, Genius did not immediately eat the jerky that Chu Ci handed to it. Instead, it spoke in a childish voice. Smart, I really miss Chu Ci. As much as 1,000 pieces of red braised pork. When Lin Yuan heard Genius' words, he raised his brows. Genius was doted on everywhere in the manor. Even a middle-aged uncle like Hu Quan liked to hug Genius in his arms when he had nothing to do. Now, he finally knew the reason. At that moment, Lu Jia picked up Lin Yuan's call. After picking up the call, Lin Yuan was the first to ask. Brother Lu, how is your body recovering? Lu Jia did not answer Lin Yuan's question directly this time. Instead, he could not help but ask. Lin Yuan, your body over there. Before Lu Jia finished speaking, Lin Yuan heard Wen Yu's voice over the phone. Brother Lu, is it young master calling? If young master is calling, put it on speaker. Has young master recovered over there? As soon as Wen Yu finished speaking, Lin Yuan immediately heard her voice amplify several times. All of you, come over. Young master is calling. In less than half a minute, Lin Yuan heard Endless Summer, Hu Quan, the mother of Bloodbath, Listen, and Zhou Luo's voices. These voices were filled with anxiety as they asked about the condition of his body. Lin Yuan's heart warmed. After informing everyone that he was safe and chatting for a while, Lin Yuan said, I'll go back tomorrow. There are 2 more days until the new year. We'll go out and prepare the New Year's goods together. Lin Yuan was looking forward to this new year. Last year, Lin Yuan had spent the new year with Chu Ci in the Xia region. This year, Lin Yuan and Chu Ci had started a new life and had so many warm fetters. Before hanging up the phone, Lin Yuan was about to ask Lu Jia if the insect queen had completed its mutation. At that moment, Lu Jia said, Lin Yuan, I just received a notice from the Radiant Sacred Hall. Yuan, I just received a notice from the Radiance Sacred Hall. The chief guard of the spirit guards wants to see me. Upon hearing that Lu Jie had something to do, Lin Yuan did not ask about the insect queen's mutation. Anyway, Lin Yuan would return to the mansion tomorrow. If there was really something wrong with the insect queen, he would know once he used true data to check. Just as he hung up the phone, an unusually clear and ethereal voice suddenly came from the depths of Lin Yuan's soul. My lord. I hope that readers who like this book will come to QQ to support the original version and subscribe to it. Hehe, thank you very much. The second one was even worse. Sob, sob, sob. End of this chapter. Chapter 528. Upon hearing this voice, Lin Yuan was immediately startled. Lin Yuan had already found the source of this voice. It came from the depths of his soul. Lin Yuan subconsciously thought into the depths of his soul and found that the depths of his soul, which he had previously been unable to reach, were now unobstructed. Upon entering the depths of his soul, Lin Yuan immediately discovered that one of his two human-shaped phantoms had a girl with her eyes closed, a crown on her head, and a sharp sword in her arms. Lin Yuan used true data to examine the girl floating in midair in the soul phantom. Upon seeing the information displayed under true data, Lin Yuan suddenly did not know what to say. Could sacred source lifeforms be fused? Under Morbius true data, the girl with closed eyes, wearing a crown, and holding a sharp sword was not a sacred source lifeform. Instead, it was the state of two sacred source lifeforms fused together. These two sacred source lifeforms were currently fusing from 2 to 1. This immediately made Lin Yuan recall the scene in his dream where the girl with her eyes closed seemed to be threatened by the reddish gold light and reluctantly embraced the sharp sword. Under true data, the name of the girl with her eyes closed was the sacred source lifeform, Grace Queen. The name of the sword engraved with gorgeous patterns on the hilt was the sacred source lifeform, Sacred Punishment Sword. Under true data, the fusion rate of these two sacred source lifeforms had reached 70%. There was still 30% left before they could completely fuse and become a new sacred source lifeform. Based on the time he had been unconscious, Lin Yuan made a rough calculation. This meant that he would know in about 3 days. When these two sacred source lifeforms fused, the Grace Queen and the Sacred Punishment Sword, what kind of sacred source lifeform would be formed? When the Grace Queen fused with the sacred source lifeform, the Execution Sword, it was equivalent to sealing their own abilities and fusing them together. Since the two had already fused to about 70%, Lin Yuan could not use true data to find out the specific functions of the Grace Queen and the Sacred Punishment Sword. However, based on the name alone, the Grace Queen should be a sacred source lifeform with supportive abilities. The Executioner Sword was a sacred source lifeform with offensive abilities. Lin Yuan was not worried at all about what the Grace Princess and the Pursuit Holy Sword would fuse into. He only had a strong anticipation. His master, the Moon Empress, and the Mother of Bloodbath had both said that every sacred source lifeform had an irreplaceable function. As a result, there were no weak sacred source lifeforms. In his opinion, even if he did not know why the two sacred source lifeforms would fuse in his soul, he should be able to understand why. However, a sacred source lifeform formed from the fusion of two sacred source lifeforms should be much stronger than the original sacred source lifeform. Otherwise, wouldn't he have fused with it for nothing? In the depths of Lin Yuan's soul, he could hear the crown on her head and her eyes closed as she hugged the sacred sword. Even in her deep sleep, she still kept calling out to him, "My lord, my lord." Lin Yuan could feel a throbbing in his bloodline. The throbbing of his bloodline caused him to be tightly connected to this girl who had her eyes tightly shut, wore a crown on her head, and held a sacred sword in her arms. When Lin Yuan had held the two sacred source lifeforms to prevent the dimensional rift from evolving, they had absorbed a lot of his blood. It even absorbed some of Lin Yuan's bone marrow from his shattered bones. If not for the fact that this girl with the crown on her head was an illusory spiritual body, Lin Yuan would not have been able to recognize her. Just this feeling of blood connection made Lin Yuan feel as though he had raised a daughter. Lin Yuan did not think too much about it. he only needed to wait for 3 days. He would then be able to clearly understand the functions of the fused sacred source life form with true data. When Lin Yuan came back to his senses, he realized that genius had already turned into a cat pancake in Chu Si's arms. Its 3 little tails were wagging non-stop with a satisfied expression. In fact, when Lin Yuan had hung up the phone, he had noticed that Chu Si was looking at him with a hopeful expression. At the same time, there was a hint of shyness. Lin Yuan immediately knew what Chu Si was thinking. Chu Si hugged genius with both hands, and Lin Yuan reached out to stroke her hair. After pressing down the ahog on top of Chu Si's head, he said, "Buy whatever you want for the new year. Buy whatever you want during the New Year's shopping. This New Year's blackback mountain pork and big head fish soup will be enough." Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, Chu Si burst out laughing. Although Chu Si did not know how many resources Lin Yuan had, just the pocket money that Lin Yuan would send to her star web card every once in a while was enough. It was enough to buy several blackback mountain pork and fathead fish farms. In addition, Chu Si had been eating the nutritious set meals that Lin Yuan had ordered from the Spirit Food Pavilion. Basically, she could eat ingredients that were more than 10 times better than the blackback mountain pork and fathead fish soup. However, when Lin Yuan mentioned the blackback mountain pork and fathead fish soup, Chu Si could not help but feel a strong sense of warmth in her heart. No matter what happened in the future, the taste of the blackback mountain pork and fathead fish soup had long been engraved in Chu Si's mind. In Chu Si's 16 years of life, the taste of the blackback mountain pork and fathead fish soup was equivalent to the taste of spending the new year with Lin Yuan. "Big brother, don't be reluctant to eat the fish head and the fathead fish soup this new year." Upon hearing Chu Si's words, Lin Yuan reached out and rubbed his nose. Chu Si had really misunderstood this matter. Every new year, Lin Yuan would indeed leave the blackback mountain pork's lean meat for Chu Si. He would eat some of the meat skin that Chu Si did not like or a few spoonfuls of vegetable soup. However, Lin Yuan did not eat the fish head and the fathead fish soup not only because Chu Si liked it. It was also because Lin Yuan did not like to eat things with a strong fishy smell at all. In this aspect, genius was in line with Lin Yuan's taste. After Chu Si finished speaking, the hopeful expression on her face disappeared. For Chu Si, every new year was the time when she and Lin Yuan would hold a few hundred Federation dollars to buy New Year's goods. It could be considered the thing that Chu Si had looked forward to the most when she was young. Now that Chu Si had grown up, her longing was no longer the joy of eating good things when she bought New Year's goods. It was more because she could still do some things with Lin Yuan like when they were young. When the hope on Chu Si's face disappeared, the shyness and uneasiness on Chu Si's face became more intense. Lin Yuan looked at Chu Si's expression and smiled brightly, revealing a mouthful of white teeth. The first time, end of this chapter. Chapter 529. Don't you already know Lu Jia and Wenyu? You've seen them before when we were video chatting. They're all looking forward to your arrival. Wenyu had already started to decorate your room when the house was being built. Uncle who knows that you like blackback mountain boars, so he made some wood carvings of blackback mountain boars for you. Upon hearing his words, Chu Si felt that she should not defend herself at this time. She could not remember how many times she had told Lin Yuan that she only liked to eat blackback mountain boar meat, not blackback mountain boars. However, after thinking about it, every time Lin Yuan explained, Lin Yuan would seem to be afraid that she would think too much and would hint to her that she could choose any fei she liked. She didn't have to pay too much attention to this feeling, so she decided to give up on the treatment. Upon hearing that, the shy expression on Chu Si's face disappeared. After Chu Si grew up a little, she also helped Lin Yuan greet the customers who came to the fei store. Although she wasn't good with words, she didn't think that she was a bashful person. It was just that a 16-year-old girl like Chu Si was still a little nervous about getting to know so many of her brother's friends. After all, even if Chu Si was acquainted with everyone in the manor, she had only gotten to know them through video chat. She had never met them in real life. Chu Xi suddenly recalled Cold Yu's suggestion to her before she became her master, so she told Lin Yuan, "Don't worry. Big brother, master said that if I can obtain the Redbud 100 qualifications this year, then I can represent the Redbud 100 to participate in the Radiance 100 sequences selection next year. I will also have the chance to fight for the 10 Radiance 100 spots. If I can fight for the Radiance 100 spots, master suggests that I skip grades and enter the Royal Capital's Advanced Spirit Qi University." Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan did not help Chu Xi come up with an idea like before. Instead, he smiled and said to Chu Xi, "Little girl, you've already grown up. You can make your own decisions about these things." Perhaps Chu Xi was not necessarily the one who understood Lin Yuan the most in this world. However, Lin Yuan was the one who understood her the most in this world. Although Chu Xi was usually quiet, she was also a person with her own ideas. The fact that she had mentioned this to him meant that she had already made up her mind to skip grades and study in the Royal Capital's Advanced Spirit Qi University. Lin Yuan had gritted his teeth and chosen to let Chu Xi continue to attend school under such difficult conditions. It was because he wanted her to have a complete childhood and learn the knowledge she needed to learn like a child with parents. However, she had chosen to walk the path of a genius through her talent and hard work. When Chu Xi's school reopened after the holiday, she would have 2 fantasy breed phase and a fairy source-type life form, the burning sunflower. It was likely that none of the seniors who had participated in the mock competition with Chu Xi would be a match for her now. Under such circumstances, for someone like Chu Xi, who was adept at discovering problems in actual combat and making progress, it would be difficult for her to do so. It was equivalent to losing many opportunities to hone oneself. Thus, from the perspective of Chu Xi's growth, attending a high-level Spirit Qi University in the royal capital was the best choice. At that time, Chu Xi could commute every day and return to the manor directly after school. The brother and sister could live together every day. Chu Xi replied with a smile. "Then I'll do as master says and strive to skip a grade next year to study at the Royal Capital Advanced Spirit Qi University." Lin Yuan pinched Chu Xi's nose and thought to himself, "She's quite ambitious." However, when he thought of Chu Xi's obsidian iron wild bull, which had been upgraded to Fantasy 2 at silver, he realized that Chu Xi already had a master. Furthermore, her master was an expert like Cold Moon. He suddenly felt that she might really be able to enter the Radiance 100 sequence tomorrow. Lin Yuan had been awake for a while, so he lifted the blanket and got out of bed. "Chu Xi, let's go out. Master and the others must be worried sick." Lin Yuan's expression turned slightly cold. At that moment, the gray-haired, gray-eyed man who called himself Hunting Ashes appeared in Lin Yuan's mind. After the gray-haired, gray-eyed man injured Lu Jia and thought that they were dead for sure, he said the name's 7th page war. It could be said that these 2 pieces of information were all the information Lin Yuan could grasp about the enemy in this evolving dimensional rift. Now that he was in the Radiant Moon Palace, he could tell the Moon Empress about it. It was also good to see if his master, the Moon Empress, could find out who exactly the other party was or what faction they were from. At this moment, Lu Jia was confused. He might be the Radiance 100 sequence number 30. But no matter what, he did not deserve to be personally received by the chief guard of the Spirit Guards. Furthermore, the chief guard of the Spirit Guards had personally informed the Radiant Sacred Hall about this matter. Then, the Radiant Sacred Hall had relayed the message to him. It could be said to be very formal. However, the more formal it was, the more Lu Jia found it unusual. Lu Jia had his own guesses. He felt that he would be summoned by the chief guard of the Spirit Guards. It was very likely related to the dimensional rift that had appeared in the coastal sea outside Indigo Azure City. Although this was a serious matter, the guard envoys of the Spirit Guards were more than capable of receiving him personally. In fact, other than the guard envoys, there were also the left and right attendants of the Spirit Guards who could handle this matter. There was no need for the chief guard at all. While Lu Jia was still trying to figure out what was going on, he arrived at the lakeside of the Spirit Suppression Lake where the Spirit Guards resided. As long as Lu Jia walked to the center of the Spirit Suppression Lake from the chain bridge, he would arrive at the spirit guard's territory. He had just arrived at the lakeside of the spirit sealing lake and was about to step onto the chain bridge that led to the spirit suppressing division's territory. Lu Jie saw a black-robed woman with a veil over her face standing at the center of the chain bridge. The woman stood on the chain bridge with her hands behind her back. There was not the slightest bit of spiritual energy fluctuation, just like an ordinary person. No matter how the east wind blew the rope bridge, the woman's figure was as still as a bronze beast on the side of the rope bridge. As a Radiance 100 sequence member, Lu Jie had met the chief guard of the spirit guards before. Based on the attire of the woman on the chain bridge and the fact that she had appeared on a chain bridge within the spirit guard's territory, it was easy to tell that she was dressed like this. Lu Jie immediately confirmed the woman's identity. Second Gung, asking for monthly votes and recommendation votes. Button will work on weekends, no breaks. Sob, 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 but try to chase Unparalleled in the World and Twilight Melody out. Sorry, I owe you a few days. Sob, sob, sob. End of this chapter. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.